Hello and welcome to Net That Haul. We're back for the GW1 Matchup show. We have a very special guest, long-time hauler, friend of the show, Andy Martin, FPL tactician, as he's otherwise known. Pleasure to have you on the show, Andy.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's very exciting just to sit here and watch all the matchups. I'm just a big fan. Happy to be on, yeah.
Amazing. So for anyone who's not tuned in before, we're going to do our FPL Philosophy of the Week, as has become the custom. We also have a philosophy from Andy, which we're going to talk about first before we go to our resident philosopher, Gabe, with his Game-Week 1 philosophy, which I've waited all preseason to see. So I'm excited to see if that sticks a few daggers into people's backs across the community. But
you mean axes?
Yeah, I guess he's moved on to axes these days. Knives aren't big enough, not enough surface area to wound someone properly. But
the more mass something has, the harder it hits.
So. Yeah, no, I like that. And then in terms of everyone who's in the chat as well, thank you for tuning in live with us here tonight. I am also going to announce that we will be back for a kind of ad hoc final roast my team on Wednesday at around 8:30 p.m. UK time. I'll talk a little bit more about that and some other guests that we may be getting on then. But let's go right into it then. We have another golfer philosophy, as we did with Greenback Golfer and Luke last week. Why don't you take us through Gary Player's FPL Philosophy of the Week, Andy?
Before we start, just for the podcasters, we've got Andy Martin eating porridge, sat on the toilet.
I mean, that's where I spend the majority of my time, to be honest.
Eating porridge?
Eating porridge or sat on the toilet, yeah.
This gives a new perspective to shit posting.
I'm proud of that slide, Andy. I really am.
It works so well.
Anyway, enough of my bullshit. Oh damn, I've sworn.
Don't worry, we're 2 minutes in. You've done well.
Oh, that's all right.
No, we'll let you go, Andy. No more interruptions from us.
Yeah. So I mean, my philosophy. I've used this quote for like 10 years of things I've done in life and games I've played or stuff I've done, basically. And it's Gary Player. It's the harder you practice, the luckier you get. And in FPL terms, I get a lot of stick from people. Either I can never win. It's either I've got lucky or you're bad. And because I don't go necessarily template wise a lot of the time, it feels like the punts I make are just punts and kind of off the cuff, where in reality I am looking at all the podcasts, all the streams, doing my own research. And I do put a lot of hours into this game. Like, I love it. And I want to keep it as a hobby because I work hard during the week. I've got a busy job and my downtime is FPL. I don't have a family. So I enjoy the research and putting in the time. And I feel like I do get lucky, but that's because I spend hours and hours. It perceives as lucky, but in reality, I'm looking at planning, researching, streams, podcasts, articles. And if you put in the hours, I believe you do get more lucky in this game and you do get a better rank.
Tell us about your current season in... I think we got you back. But tell us about your current season in is it the Norwegian Fantasy Elite? You did very well when I last checked.
Yeah, I've slipped down a bit, but that was to be expected. A lot of people are now starting to use their second wildcard. So we're kind of just over halfway through the season. Got up to overall rank of 3rd. I've dropped down to 20th now.
Wow. Which
is still quite high. I mean, there's nearly 50,000 players. I'm sure maybe like 10, 15 are active. But and that's again having a group chat of talking late into the night throughout the summer of what moves are going to make, strategies, looking at fixture runs. And the rewards have been good and my chips have gone well and I've managed to get the high rank. So
I think it's interesting you talk about the kind of the conversations with avid fellow fans and kind of sharing that addiction or love of the game of FPL or other formats of fantasy that we have with each other, because that's really what it is, isn't it? Like, this is what the best part of the community is all about, just finding other people who you maybe would never have come across in other walks of life. And through this one hobby that we all share, we spend hours and hours a week kind of deliberating over our choices. But then I do feel it's a bit unfair sometimes when you specifically have been labeled as that you got lucky, for example. Like, we all know the famous triple captain KDB.
Yeah.
That's like a tombstone moment. That will still be remembered in 20 years. But people, does that wind you up when people call you lucky when, obviously you put in the work, you put in the effort, you probably have eye test and stats backing you, and yet people will just try and say that because you want to play your own way, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that Kevin De Bruyne scoring 4 goals is thought out, well processed. I mean, there's luck involved in that. You don't expect De Bruyne to score 4 goals, but when they're going for the title and they've got a couple of winnable games, and he came off the back of a rest, like stuff like that opens up for you as well. And I think, like, I mapped stuff out like maybe 4 to 6 weeks previous, and I was already mapping out: am I going to triple captain Kevin De Bruyne, or even Cancelo, or even Richarlison in 37? And Richarlison in 37 did very well as well, based on the fact that they're fighting for stuff at the end of the season. I always think that's a kind of a thing. And form for me doesn't exist. It's to do with the fixtures. I do create my own narratives on things, certain things, but often that does seem to work out. And I'm not afraid to go on someone that's blanked 5 or 6 games in a row. If you've got 2 games coming up that are ideal, and like this show really helped, especially that season, where you look at the matchups and you think, okay, my own research was right, decision making was right, I'm going to go for that kind of thing. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. I think before we go to Gabe's philosophy, I have one last question for you around, obviously, lessons learned from last year and kind of what you might bring into this season. I know around game week 4, you said you were about 5 million ranked last year. And I wonder if that kind of pushes you more towards a more template start this year, or whether you kind of double down and you still try to chase that very big ceiling of kind of being in the top 5, 10K 4 weeks in if you go against the masses.
I think on the back of the previous season, perhaps I got a bit too big for my boots. Like, I got a 2K finish. I got the triple captain, Kevin De Bruyne, 90 points. Perhaps I was going too far away from the template and trying to like force it even more, because I started with 4-8 million mids last season. I didn't start with Haaland, didn't start with Jesus, and they both did very well at the start of the season. I was struggling to catch up and kind of get to the template, and I was still like 3 or 4 million after 6 or 7, I think. So I think perhaps that taught me a lesson of don't go completely rogue, rein it in a little bit. There's still bits and pieces to have, but when you've got kind of 6 or 7 players that the template haven't got, and it did do well at the start of last season, then it is tough to catch up. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think we'll obviously talk more about your plans going into game week 1 as we go through the matchups and we talk about specific assets in each of the games in fixtures in game week 1. Why don't we quickly go over to our resident philosopher Gabe and look at his philosophy of the week as well, and then we'll go into the actual juicy part of the show. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here, Andy. Obviously, as you say, we met at the first ever, I think, fest in the pub before we went there.
We did. It was a great time, wasn't it? Lovely time.
Yeah, it was years ago now. And it was just when we were first starting to come out of lockdowns and actually starting to see people in real life from this little community. But I take it you're a bit of a celebrity in Bournemouth. I see a lot of people come to the pier and randomly bump into you. I hear you met a good friend of ours. Do you remember that trophy we were going for, the Rockstar All-Star? I hear Rocky made it down to the pier and got to see
He did. Yeah. I met Rocky, and he's kind of like, because I didn't know what he looked like at all. So he just introduced himself as Rocky. I was like, okay, nice to meet you. And then it wasn't until like a minute later, it's like, FPL Rockstar. I was like, oh my God, like.
You thought it was just some random dude who's been stalking you online for years.
Yeah. Because I do get it. And I've had a few people come up to me and like, oh, I follow you on Twitter. Can I get a photo? Like just me working and stuff. And that's very weird. But then Rockstar comes in, it's like, okay, this is a proper celebrity. So yeah.
I love that.
So good.
I love that. Cool.
But
so
everyone gets a gift. Everyone gets some chocolates or a teddy.
I was going to say, you were very... I've got my gift here. It's actually been on my work table this entire time, nearly 2 seasons now. I've got my little...
Oh, look at that.
Captain America TY Bear. I hear that these are going up in value. It was the biggest NFTs of the old days, but they're still around. So, Gabe, why don't you talk us through your version of the man sitting on the toilet? And today we have Plato.
Right on. Yeah, here we go. What I love about Andy's philosophy is that to me, it exemplifies what I know about Andy as an FPL manager. And that thing that like puts you in a position to get lucky. It's like Andy, you've done your research. You know it's not luck. So you can sit back there while people claim it's luck and just that there's a high to that. So I think one of my resolutions for this season is to play a little bit more to my own analysis, even if it is more differential. So I do appreciate that quote from Gary Player. But yeah, I bring something from the classics this week for game week 1. And it's just because there's just a lot going, like, of talk going around, like how many drafts have we seen and stuff like that. So it got me thinking, like, this compulsion to post a draft every 45 seconds or to post something every day or to like just constantly speak. So Plato said, a wise person speaks because they have something to say. A fool speaks because they have to say something. And I think, like, as we're digesting all this content, I know, Andy, you take in a lot of content. There's content from people that have something to say, and there's content from people that have to say something. So if you're like producing content or anything really to fit an algorithm, you're producing it because you have to say something in order to get certain results based on an algorithm, right? So maybe that's not the quality content that we should be taking into our analytic processes. And it's more like find like the gems out there. Like when somebody has an insight, then they share it. They don't have to share it at a certain time every single day, at a new draft with these buzzwords or anything like that. It's just about the insight itself. So it's a little bringing awareness to like being more discerning in the content that we take in as we approach kickoff.
That's very interesting. I think we will go straight to the matchups because we are a little bit into the show. But my main point was that I have seen it. I'm not going to name names, but I know that preseason is a big time for interaction and engagement. For a lot of people, it's maybe like 50, 60% of their annual subscribers or viewership will come in that time. And I know there are people out there who it's their favorite time of the season to do the research. So fair play to them. But I do know they also schedule multiple tweets a day to go out with what they plan to say weeks in advance, like on a Monday, and all of it goes out, as you say, and it's just to get stuff out there and to get clicks and to get followers while they can. So I think that's the difference between doing it for your livelihood, which obviously I completely understand.
That's exactly the point. That was the point I'm going to make here, really. I mean, these people, it's their livelihoods. I mean, do we plan weeks and weeks in advance what we do at work? Absolutely we do. So I'm not criticizing them, really. I just, if you don't want, I mean, I always just have a list, and I have the people who I want to follow and who I want to read, and I have them in the list. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the content which you see, quite frankly, it's a bit irrelevant, really. But that's fine.
You don't want to know about the top 5 midfielders based on their latest haircut.
I don't want to know that Luton are third in the fixture difficulty rating. That's a fact.
But I think my main takeaway from this is not to criticize the people, as you say, Mariner. I think that's correct. I think it's just to be more conscious of what you're consuming, as Gabe says, because you've got to look at like the motivation behind it. Was it just a discussion and a genuine thought-provoking moment where something came to them? Or is it because this is just something you have to put out to just keep interacting and keep the algos going?
It's absolutely that, isn't it? Let's face it. But I mean, look, I've no problem with it. I've no problem with it. As I say, I think what you've got to do is just decide what bits you want to eat. It's like food, isn't it? If you don't like liver, don't eat liver.
Yeah, and I love an interaction. I live for it, really.
You don't schedule them, though. We found out today.
No, I don't.
You do them on the toilet while having porridge.
That's correct.
I love it. Do you want to kick us off with the first game of the season opener at 8 p.m. this Friday, the 11th of August? Obviously, FPL deadline 6:30 p.m. UK. Don't get caught out by that, guys. We'll go straight into... I'll let you continue driving from here, Chris. I've done my bit. I've steadied the ship to the matchup, and now I'm going to sit here and drink red wine.
You've done your bit. All right, then. So, here we go, then. So, FPL matchups. So, again, the art of matchups, just for people who are joining us. is that what we do is we take a number of different metrics, either metrics that we've designed ourselves, like our own fixture difficulties, Gabe's NetxG, which combines multiple factors, including the effect of goalkeepers. And we also look at zonal matchups. So, for example, someone attacking down the left against someone defending on the right, and look at that. So, how many chances does a team expect to create? And you literally take the number of chances for the left-hand side against the number of chances conceded for the right, and you just average them. So just to remind people. And we've added a few more: big chances, shots on target, shots in the box, headers as well. And then Gabe's got his shot goal predictors as well. So let's start with Burnley against Manchester City. So, okay, a Friday night. Will the lights be on? I think they might be on. Certainly towards the end now. It's starting to get dark in the Northern Hemisphere, even though I don't see it that much. Turf Moor, tough place to go. No doubt it'll be rocking. And to be honest with you, I think our metrics pick it a little bit, because you would expect that Manchester City's metrics would be much, much better than they actually are. They're still very good. Fixture difficulty 2.9 attack, 3.2 defense. So it does scream a 110th minute equalizer. Which Neem would be very, very happy about, no doubt, yesterday. Zonals, Manchester City, left and centre, 4.4, 4.7. Big chances, shots on target, shots in the box, and everything don't really light up. I think that tells a story. But the thing is, maybe they don't need it because they're so clinical, generally speaking. They get the chances, they put them away. Doesn't really suggest Burnley's going to do an awful lot, but you know what? I won't be at all surprised if they don't make it hard for Manchester City, Gabe. What's your perspective?
I mean, yeah, so just like a caveat, I think it's game week 1, so there won't be a lot of references to the data in the analyses, because the data is obviously all from last season. There have been a bunch of changes, so we put them there as just kind of like a guideposts, just to get our bearings as we get into the analysis. And I don't know, like, yes, City away last season, they weren't as free flowing as they were at home. Maybe teams played deeper. Maybe they didn't want to be embarrassed as much at home. I'm not sure what all of the reasons are for it. But City are going to a Burnley team that, from what I could tell, and I don't really watch the Championship, so this is just going back and watching highlights and reading articles. They don't really have a plan B that like kind of puts them, like their plan A is to basically play like City. So they invert their fullbacks. They drop their center mids to help the back line, help kind of open passing lanes to progress the ball. They're not gonna, and they're used to having possession, so they kind of like steamroll the teams in the Championship, and they're not gonna have that kind of possession against City. So if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really know what to expect from Burnley. I don't think they'll play a super high press, but they could play a mid block, for example, and just try to prevent City from getting the ball into the corners. It's hard to know what to expect from Burnley. Now, from Manchester City, we do know what to expect, and if they're able to, if Burnley kind of come out to get them, then I like players like Grealish, for example. If he gets the ball 1v1 against somebody, then I think Grealish could really wreak some havoc as kind of like a instrument of chaos if Burnley are pushed too deep, right? But I don't know, Andy, how do you see this one?
I mean, sure, it's going to be tough for City. I mean, I'd say they're going to win, but I don't see it being like 3-4-0 comfortable. It's going to be difficult. I think they'll be on top. I think possession-wise, you'll see Man City heavy on possession. It will rely on intricate play in around the box, I think, quite a lot. I can see Burnley scoring. I can see Man City winning maybe 2-3-1. Mm-hmm. What I would say is, I mean, you mentioned about Grealish. I thought he had a really quiet game yesterday, and I didn't think he looked particularly fit yesterday. And I know he's like, the summer he's had, like it's no surprise that he's not up to speed yet. So I'm interested in the lineup, because whether Foden plays, Alvarez plays, are people going to then switch their teams up based on what the lineup is? Because I wouldn't like to do that necessarily game week 1. But yeah, it depends how high the back line is with Burnley as well. Are they going to defend the box to like double up on Haaland? Because then that appeals to the second balls, the knockdowns, like the KDBs in and around the box, and it could be goals from outside the box that might find its way in. It's difficult to call. I don't like captain Haaland for this fixture. Not an opening night, under the floodlights, Burnley crowd, just been promoted as champions, company against his old club. They've been back in pre-season longer than anyone else. I don't like it for Haaland captain, but I still think City will win.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment. I'm also not 100. I'm not happy with Haaland captain. I've got to decide whether I've got big enough balls to go against the enormous EO that we're actually going to see probably for him on game week 1. With
it's
the
only,
whole
150, 160. You'll be fine,
yeah,
Chris.
It's pretty high, isn't it? It's going to be pretty high. But yeah, I mean, look, from my side of things, I just look at it and I just think it's going to be, it could be a tough night. And I've got a question as well, Andy, I'd like to ask you really. What's your view on City defence? I mean, obviously, they conceded again late yesterday. They've got into a habit of conceding late. We've now got an extra 10 minutes of every game to play as well, by the looks of things.
Hold on, can I put a stop to that narrative right now?
Yeah, sure. Let me just finish what I was going to say, then I'll bring you in, because there's two perspectives of this as I see it, and I've been having a long think about this today. Obviously, it's all about game state. If a team is significantly up in games, which maybe they won't be this time, but teams might relax a little bit, concede a late goal, this, that, and the other. If teams are chasing a game and it's a tight game, you can see people scoring late, particularly. But, I mean, Gabe, I mean, bring you both in. I don't know if you want to come in first, Gabe, and then Andy, but I just see this might be something we need to think about. I'm not sure how much we need to think about it, though, but it's certainly going to have an impact, surely.
I just wanted to nip something in the bud, that narrative of 10 extra minutes, but it's just not true.
It's 10 extra minutes of the ball in play.
No, not even. Like if you're thinking like, so if you're thinking, and I tweeted about this, total, right? It's about 10 to 14 minutes total. So like at halftime and at the end of the game, right? But it was last season, Premier League match went on average over 98 minutes. So it was 98.07. So it's really like between 2 and 6 extra minutes. And the players that are in there for the first half will get like 1 or 2 of those. So it's really like 1 to 3 extra minutes in the game. And we're treating it as like, oh my God, all these goals are going to be scored. It's like, it's just the math that doesn't work out. So I think that's negligible. We can like forget about the like what's going to happen in the last an extra 2 minutes of a game.
So winding that out then and going back to the Manchester City conundrum, Andy, Man City defence. What's your perspective?
I mean, obviously they're the best defence still.
They are,
and it was the clean sheets, conceding the clean sheets. It felt like when it was 3-0, it would be finishing 3-1. And whether that be players not concentrating, tiredness, fatigue, the amount of times that Man City have possession of the ball. So I can see that turning around this year and Pep really getting on them. Like, if it's 2-0, 10 minutes to go, we keep the ball, we make sure they haven't got any chances, and you stay on it, you stay focused, because there's going to be times when we come unstuck. So perhaps they're more switched on, knowing that they lost a lot of clean sheets. I think it's 5 clean sheets in the last 18 games of the season, which is shocking for Man City, because you'd expect probably 50% clean sheets. So I can see again the clean sheets increasing based on the fact that they just keep the ball when it's 2-3-0. But I still don't like Ederson because they don't make saves, and if he does concede, then yeah, it's horrible. But
Yeah,
I mean, also the defenders. There's a lot of different choices, so it's always difficult.
Okay. I was going to say, we'll probably keep coming back to this in the questions later on. I'm no doubt there'll be some questions about City defence later on, I would guess, guys. Almost certainly. Should we keep going?
Let's go to the next one. Just on that, there was a poll earlier in the episode about, do you have a 4.5 million or 5 million goalkeeper in your Game Week 1 starting lineup? 54% answered 4.5 million, 38% 5 million, 6% other. I think of those 6%, one is blue with 4 million goalkeepers and no Haaland, and everyone else might be Edison, Andy. So I think they're the 6%, as they like to say. And then I'm going to end the current poll before we go on to Arsenal, which was, will you captain Haaland in Game Week 1? The conclusion of this poll was 72% said yes, 27% said no. So yeah, we'll go on to Arsenal Forest. Just to timestamp it for myself, 26 minutes.
Fair enough. So Arsenal Forest, then again, very positive for Arsenal on the fixture difficulty, 3.2 attack, 2.1 defence. Slightly better on the left-hand side. Again, as we've said, take these zonals and everything else with a giant pinch of salt, because we're let to see. But the direction of travel's there. You'd expect this to be stronger, but Arsenal were not so good towards the end of last season at home, as we all know. But still, they're pretty green. 2.9 big chances, 5.9 shots on target. On the NetxG, Gabe, 2.1 for Arsenal, 1 for Forest. Again, there's another one. Is that not a clean sheet? They have not been keeping clean sheets at home towards the end of last season. They most definitely didn't. But your shot goal predictor, Gabe, is bright green. Really likes 20% chance of three goals on the shot goal predictor. So, how many Arsenal players are we having, boys? But before we go to that discussion, Gabe, what's your perspective of the game itself?
I mean, I expect Arsenal to just steamroll Forest. I think they're going to blow them out by a difference of 3 or more goals. Forest, their preseason has been atrocious. They haven't been signing players. They haven't brought anyone in except for obviously Matt Turner, who recently signed, who probably won't be available for this game because it may come too soon. I just think Forest are in a bad state, and Arsenal have to be on a high from the Community Shield. I mean, even though the equalizer did take a couple deflections, I thought Arsenal tried some different things. I thought their high press looked really interesting. I thought Havertz cutting off one of the lanes, the outside lanes, when they're pressing the center back against City. I thought that worked really well. I wrote here I expect Nketiah to lead the line, but I'm not so sure anymore after seeing Havertz. I wrote that before the Community Shield. I just don't know. Maybe Nima can shed some insight there, but of all the Arsenal players, Martinelli was by far the furthest forward against City. I expect that to continue, and I think for me he's the standout pick for Arsenal. And then in addition to that, I have to say I also really like Havertz. I think Havertz will be on pens if Jorginho isn't on the field, and he won't be on the field most of the time. So Havertz on pens, potentially at the 9. Fluff the chance, as we're used to seeing him do so against City. But at 7.5, I think he might be more interesting to me than even Saka.
Yeah, Saka's an interesting one, isn't he? If he's still on penalties, and it's it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't think Nima, what do you think?
But what if he isn't? All of a sudden, then that really opens it up. It certainly opens it up for the obvious Martinelli. That's very obvious. But then it even opens it up for the 2 interesting ones, as I put it in my thread the other day, in Havertz and Trossard. And even Trossard coming on, maybe even coming on at 65 minutes and playing 35 minutes, is that enough for a 7 million asset for Arsenal against Forest, who probably be blowing out their arse by then, having chased around the pitch like Nima when Nima was wobbling around Highbury, around the Emirates. Highbury. Hell, I'm going back in time now.
Showing your age there,
Maybe
Chris.
you are Nima. But anyway, I half expect it to. I don't think it matters that Trossard's coming on the pitch if he doesn't start. Quite frankly, in this game, it really doesn't bother me one bit. What's your view, guys?
So I think it's interesting, the striker conundrum for game week 1. I still think Eddie will start through the middle, specifically just against Forest. And I think you're about to see Pep levels of rotation. People said Arteta doesn't rotate much. He didn't trust anyone beyond his 13th or 14th man last year. If you looked at Arsenal, the 13th and 14th man, they had like 1,000 minutes. City, their 18th and 19th man, had like 1,800 minutes. Arteta's gone and bought a much deeper squad of versatile players. There are 2 players competing for every position minimum. Everyone can play in multiple positions. I honestly think it's going to be a fucking minefield. And I think that's where the Saka appeal comes in, regardless of the penalties, because he will be the nailed-on man. Like, he will play. I asked the poll, are you going for free Arsenal to start the season in the live chat? Do let us know. I asked if you have 1, 2, or if you have 3, and whether the 3 attackers or 2 attackers and a defender. So I'll finish that poll when we move on from this matchup. But my thoughts are for the forward line with Havertz, Trossard, and also obviously Eddie himself, that you're going to see a lot more kind of opposition-specific lineups from Arteta. So I just don't know if I can go near someone like an Eddie or a Havertz or Trossard into game week 1, knowing that, say, in the first 3 or 4, the only players attacking-wise I trust to start are Saka and Odegaard, and to an extent Martinelli. I think those 3 are the most nailed on from a minutes point of view. I think Havertz did quite well. I know everyone laughed at his fluff chances, but I don't think like Eddie would have had those opportunities and created them for himself. Trossard is great. He does a lot of what Jesus does in bringing in the other attacking players, but he's not like your back-to-goal striker. And then kind of Eddie's more of the poacher. He is starting to drop deep more and try to get involved in hold-up play. But Havertz can do the back-to-goal stuff as well very well and break the line. So you're in a situation where there's 3 players who between them have what Jesus has, but Jesus has all of that in one package. So it's kind of like, depending on which opposition it is, I think Arteta's going to be like, which of Jesus' abilities do I need to unlock this specific opposition? Just one thing to hot up on Trossard, I will say, is I think he's been the standout performer of the entire preseason for me personally. When he played in the left centre mid, he looked Santi Cazorla-esque with his 2-footedness. He was very press resistant. And he's not come in here to be a squad player. He wants to take one of the attacking players' shirts. I think it's unfair if he doesn't start, but I think that's what it's going to be like. Maybe Arteta sees it that he has more impact off the bench and he wants that from him. So for me right now, I have Gabriel in defense. I have Saka and Martinelli. I toyed with the idea of moving on Gabriel to get Eddie, but after that Community Shield, I can't be going for triple attack. I can't do that. But yeah, I think keep an eye on Havertz and Trossard, because I think by the 4th or 5th week, they could emerge as very good options. I just don't have the stomach to start there. I want 2 or 3 differentials in game week 1. I don't want like a team of 5-6 players who are all minutes risks personally. Even if I know you're saying, Chris, that you don't mind Trossard coming off the bench, I just don't want that, because I think by the time he comes off the bench, I think Arsenal's going to be 3-0 up against Forest. So I want the goals from the first 60 minutes.
Yeah, it's game state again, isn't it? Are they just going to relax when he comes up? That's the thing. Andy, you're very keen on Saka, aren't you? You said earlier on.
Yeah, very keen. I just want to go back to what Nima said. I mean, I think that Eddie's not good enough, personally. I think he's a good sub and a good player, impact player to come on. And I see it that Trossard would start in the front 3. And the only change that Arsenal would make against Forest that they had yesterday would be probably Trossard coming in for Partey and maybe Havertz playing in midfield, and then the front 3 of Martinelli, Trossard and Saka. And I think that works better when Jesus is out. Personally, that's how I
think
see
that's
it.
what we want to see. Yeah. So I think against Forest, that is very likely, probably more likely than Eddie. But against like tougher opponents, like say United, Spurs, City, I think you might see more of that Rice and Partey combination.
Yeah, I would expect that. I expect Partey to come in, but in terms of Forest, I think Arsenal fans would be disappointed if Trossard's on the bench and Eddie's starting. So the way
I think you're right. The consensus seems to be everyone wants Trossard to start, and even before the Community Shield, I don't think anyone was calling for Havertz to start. But the question is, do you really need Partey and Rice against Forest at home? Could you just try to give Havertz some time to adjust at left centre mid?
And that's what I think. I think it will just be Partey for Trossard, and the rest of the 11 will be the same as yesterday. Is how I see it. Saka, I think, is reliable. Minutes wise, he should be still on pens, hopefully, at the moment. And some say he's not explosive, Chris, but I think he has got holes in him. I think that certainly against lesser teams, Saka can get good shots away. He's developing even more and more, becoming integral to what Arsenal do, and he is playing in that front three for a good team. So I'm very high on Saka. Saka's a lock in my team. I've also got Martinelli. I think Martinelli's explosive. He's great. I love watching him. At the moment, I've just got the two, which kind of scares me a little bit to not have the Arsenal defensive cover. But I've gone for Trent, Estupiñán, and Chilwell at the moment.
Trent over Gabriel, I can at least kind of see where that's coming from for sure. But just a thought on these guys, because I think you made a really valid point about Saka still developing. I think people forget that Saka and Martinelli are children. They're like a good 3 years away from the prime age for their position. And every year they're getting better. And I don't think they just suddenly stop. So I think people are judging them based on the end of last season's form and the end of the season before when we missed out on top 4. We just kind of ran out of steam, right? And I think with Saliba back, he's so important to our build-up play in that first phase of play. The confidence you can have being more adventurous going forward, knowing that this utter Rolls Royce of a player can 1v1 and go back and recover any situation like he showed against Haaland multiple times yesterday. I think that gives the attacking players more confidence to go out there and play their way. So yeah, I honestly think these players will continue to get better, and with the added competition, it's going to make them more sharper. So I've seen a lot of people talk about Saka underperforming his XG, Andy, and about Arsenal, overperforming even, Saka overperforming and Arsenal overperforming and scoring more goals. And they've been saying, United underperformed their XG, etc. I saw a table that showed that City scored, they overperformed their XG by the same number of goals as Arsenal did. And yet no one is running the narrative that City overperformed their XG and they'll revert, but Arsenal will and Saka will.
It's because they do it every season, Nima, and they're better. They're just better. They're just better finishers. Like it's not. But that's a false equivalency. It's called, but it's not.
No, but it's not just that. Like the idea that they're saying United will suddenly overperform, so they're going for like double United attack, one Arsenal attack, and they're saying because United underperformed last year, they'll match it now. And Arsenal will be the one that overperformed, therefore will drop. But Arsenal have strengthened, and United, the main striker they just signed, is out for the first few weeks. Like, how much has really changed? They barely scored in preseason. Has it really changed enough to justify double attack?
Yeah, for United, it makes no sense. For City,
City's different.
It makes sense. For United, it definitely doesn't make sense.
But just going back to a different player.
I have a quick question for Andy, though. Andy, if Havertz was on pens and you knew this, would you go from Saka to Havertz and reinvest that 1 million maybe in defense or somewhere where you're thin, or would you stick with Saka?
Not at all. I mean, I was prepared to go with Saka if he was 9.5. I don't necessarily trust the Havertz minutes. I think when Arsenal want to make a sub, say if they're 2 or 3-0 up against Forest, you're looking at kind of Havertz could be the one coming off, and I don't see that with Saka. Pens, I would maybe add Havertz to it, but I don't think it's instead of necessarily.
Okay.
I think Odegaard is someone to keep an eye on, by the way, because he took the first penalty in the shootout. He looked very confident. So it isn't just kind of like Havertz or other players. Like someone could emerge if Saka misses another one, but I believe he will take the next one.
But Odegaard doesn't have a history of taking pens.
No, he doesn't.
Havertz has an incredible history. He's only missed one in his career.
He's like a technician. He's like a master at penalties. That is certain.
Yeah.
Gabe, just one question for me as a Martinelli owner. left zonal, albeit with a giant pinch of salt. Are we expecting to see something coming down that side in this game?
Yeah, and I think actually at this point, Mariner, also like it's not a ding on Saka, but it's a boost on the replacements for Saka if you want to go like save a little bit of money. I think the left zonals at 3.7. Forest haven't changed much, so that left and Arsenal are still attacking from that left hand side with Martinelli being furthest forward. So I think that left zonal is kind of does hold some water here. And I think Arsenal's left zonal, if we look at the long range, I'm not sure if we're going to look at that later. I think the long range left zonal really pops over the right as well, which is why I like Martinelli more than Saka as far as the Arsenal assets.
Is that because Timber gets forward more as well, rather than White on the other side?
No, this is without Timber.
Okay.
So it doesn't include data with Timber.
Okay.
But I think one thing to add there is Zinchenko will have been a heavy part of this, and obviously
and Jesus combining with Martinelli
and Xhaka as well.
And Xhaka, yeah. So
there are moving parts
there, but Jesus combining with Martinelli, like he shifts over to that left side, and they play quite close together often. Without Jesus, it could change that dynamic a little bit. I think that's a fair salt to throw on it.
I just look at it on first principles. He's $500,000 cheaper than Saka or Odegaard, and I like watching him. That's actually, quite frankly, I just love owning him. I think he's, enough said. Shall we keep going? I know we've got loads of questions about.
Yeah, let's go to the next. Let's go to the next matchup. But before we do that,
yes,
just a quick plug. If you guys have been enjoying the show, if you've enjoyed seeing Andy and hearing about his philosophy on the toilet, please do hit that like button. 42 minutes in. If you're not a subscriber yet, please do join us as we have lots more content planned for the season. And if you're listening on podcast, any reviews would be much appreciated. Before we do Bournemouth versus West Ham, just because there's like literally two assets in this that I've even considered, I'm just going to start putting up on the screen as you guys talk through the matchup everyone's messages from the start of the show and just give a few shout outs that way. And then obviously we will star a lot of your questions, and in the live Q&A, we'll come back and answer them properly. But I'll let you guys take away the Bournemouth versus West Ham as I just start to put some messages up on the screen.
Right. Bournemouth against West Ham. Next.
I've got Areola. I'm considering Mubama.
Look, I would have been a lot more interested had Solanke been reasonably priced, but he's not. And that's still pissing me off right now because, quite frankly, he would have been quite interesting, I think, particularly in this fixture. West Ham have had an absolute shocker in pre-season, haven't they? They've been bloody awful. And quite frankly, is Moyes' number one favourite to either walk or get the boot this year, this season, possibly. This week, even maybe, who knows? On the actual data, Bournemouth actually have a positive matchup on Fixture Difficulty 2.1, very neutral on defence. Zonals don't show a lot, but I think there is. I think I found a slight error in one or two of the little data points for the zonals, albeit with a pinch of salt, which pushes Bournemouth's central matchup up a little bit. But that said, not a lot. Gabe, your stuff doesn't really. It's probably your NetxG shouting 1.3, 1.4, not an awful lot. Your shot goal predictors are a bit neutral. West Ham played really well last game of the season. They were the last game of the season, weren't they? At Bournemouth, if I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Bowen's 7 million, probably the only asset of interest, I would say, apart from Areola. What's your perspective, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bournemouth will be open, especially at home. We talked about that before under Iraola. Iraola loves to just like send his players flying at home and press everywhere. So I think things could open up, especially for Bowen. So I think Bowen is a great asset game week 1, and you could find a kind of a rotation for him. And then quickly on Solanke, I think Solanke will be a consideration once Bournemouth's fixtures turn. They just have such a ridiculously difficult start that you're right, Mariner. The pricing puts kind of like he can't compete with some of the other options, but he will compete. I've never been a fan of Solanke, but this season I could definitely see him being in my team at some point.
Andy, you're from down that neck of the woods. What's the locals saying?
The locals are quite excited, to be honest. They're excited to see open attacking football, and they can see lots of goals. I know there's got a couple of Bournemouth fans I work with, and they think they're going to score goals. They're going to concede lots, but also, like, games are going to be competitive. They're going to be on the front foot. So they're seeing good things in preseason. I think Kluivert's quite a good signing. I'm interested to see what he does. Yeah, I would still say they're going to be struggling for relegation, but I think perhaps you can get at Bournemouth if you competent teams are able to get at this defence quite easily. So Bowen Gameweek 1 isn't the worst shout in the world, I don't think.
I don't think Bournemouth is a good matchup for clean sheets for the opposition though. I think Bournemouth will score against Liverpool in Gameweek 2, for example.
Everyone scores against Liverpool. What are you on about?
They're going to win games 4-3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Liverpool way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, guys, from Mateus, who is the first choice keeper in West Ham? Obviously, Areola didn't start the first few games in the preseason. He then started one, and then I think he missed the most recent one again. It's not really nailed on that he's definitely going to be the first choice keeper there, is it? Like that dream of him being the 4 million goalkeeper there's no guarantee at the moment. I'm not sure we'll know before a few weeks in now.
I don't even know that it's a competition, is it?
Yeah, well, against Flapianski.
Yeah.
I have no idea. At the moment, Areola's in my draft until someone tells me otherwise. Until has Matt Turner signed for Forest?
Areola is not a good keeper. People think that he's going to come in and be better. He can play better than Fabianski, but it's basically the same thing. So I don't know. They
have signed the Alvarez, the DM, to replace Rice recently. So hopefully that's a bit of a defensive addition to them. But
there are more holes than the average teabag in the defense right now. So I mean, they need to do something quite quickly. But I mean, look, Areola's 4 million. If you get a sniff, he's going to start, or may get the odd start. Even he's all right, unless another 4 million goalkeeper jumps out the woodwork, right?
Yeah, and I think even Turner, there's issues there because they're also still pushing for Henderson, and I'm not sure it's a case of one or the other. I think Turner will maybe go to Forest, but they'll still sign Henderson or another goalkeeper. So there's no guarantee he'll be the first choice.
No, I just like his name. Anyway, right.
Let's go to the next one, I think. This match has got more airtime than it warranted. Sorry to any
it's all right.
Sherry's out there and
Hammers. We did get moaned at last year for not
skipping teams, yeah.
I do think as well, just the West Ham, you mentioned it, Miranda is a good 4.5 forward. He has been getting game time. So he's in my squad. He's in my squad as third sub. And I think if he gets any minutes, then perfect as third sub, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting one because Skamaka's left, hasn't he? And then I think Antonio was on the bench and Ings was not being seen yet. So I'm sure Mubama won't be like the main starter, but if he does well, it's his place to lose, right? Like Antonio's not getting any younger.
That would be perfect if he does. Certainly is in my drafts anyway. Should we move on? Brighton Luton. This is going to be interesting, I think. The fixture difficulty thinks it's going to be interesting, albeit we did pull out the worst data we could find for any team. Didn't we, Gabe, in pre-season to try
and selected the worst
to try and figure this out? But not just that. You see, Brighton are they're just like a bunch of animals at home. Just chaos. I mean, 5.3 fixture difficulty, 2.3 defense. Zonals don't say a lot, but look at the matchups: 3.6 big chances, 7.7 shots on target. 15 shots in the box. The problem we've got with this is it's a bit like Arsenal now. Which bloody one? And I think this is going to be the big challenge with Brighton. Last year it was it was a lot easier, but now it's becoming a bit of a bloody minefield, quite frankly, trying to find which one. Luton, on the other hand, Yes. This could be this could be a similar to score to when Grimsby played Brighton in the FA Cup. That's my prediction. I'm predicting 5-0 here. Gabe.
I'm kind of with you. I don't, but again, I can't claim to know very much about Luton, so
They're not bad. They're not a bad team. They'll do a lot better at home than they will away because of that tight little ground, and it's going to create a lot of teams. It's going to create some teams some problems there, but. I know it's the first game in the Premier League, but they're going to a really, really tough place against a really, really attacking and good team.
Yeah, but I think that kind of like the problem with Brighton, and the reason why I won't go for the Brighton goalkeeper is the way they build up leaves them so exposed, especially to like a long direct ball that Luton's going to be hitting. I think Luton score in this game. I don't think Brighton get that. Yeah, there you go. 5-1 sounds about right. I'm on board with 5-1. But as far as Brighton's concerned, the things to look out for me are, I think March will start on that right-hand side until Mohamed Kudus gets up to speed. Mitoma nailed on the left-hand side. And watch for if what Brighton try to do is they try to isolate their wingers. So it would be March on the right, but it will be Kudus and Mitoma on the left, to get him 1v1, or if anything 2v2 with the forward or the 10. So I think João Pedro or Welbeck can combine with those wingers and watch for the ball straight from Steele directly to that. We're used to Brighton like building up with small passes, but what they did last season as well is hit that ball directly from Steele to those wingers and have them go 1v1. So I think Mitoma will have success going against inferior competition in those 1v1s. I think Pedro will have success. I know I might be against the grain. I think João Pedro is absolutely nailed. Record signing. He's like focal point of kind of a lot of what they've been doing in attack in preseason. He's on pens. We've seen that now. He took a pen the other day with Gross on the field. So at 5-5, I think he breaks the game a little bit. And I'm hoping it takes a little while for people to realize. He's been in my draft since the beginning of July, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you like him, don't you? Yeah, you like him. He's been in and out of my drafts. Look, I've been somebody who's been talking matchup all the way through preseason, as you know, but now Kudus signing really. I think you're probably summarising this in this slide, Gabe. Maybe is Mitoma now the safe route? And it's boring, but it's safe. Is that fair?
I don't think Mitoma's boring, but
no, boring route for us. I wanted to.
The thing is, Mitoma is like ex-Lively, right?
I found him very frustrating to own at the end of last season, as you know. Andy, what's your perspective on Mitoma? He's 10 times more owned than March, yet the numbers are very, very similar. And I know things have probably changed now, but what's your view on Brighton's attack?
I would say Mitoma is highly owned because of what you said with Martinelli. People just like to watch him, and I do like watching Mitoma, and I've had him on my team because you watch a Brighton game and you're just fascinated from what Mitoma does on the ball. So I can see why he has high ownership, because I think he is the most nailed attacker out of all of them. I think the Luton game it's going to be ugly. Luton will try and make it ugly. I can't see them being exposed, pressing high, like Steele over the top. I think they would be. I don't know exactly how they play, but I can imagine it would just be ugly, trying to slow stuff down, get in their faces a little bit. Like, they don't want to be smashed opening day. So Brighton's going to win, but I think Luton will try as much as they can to compete and keep it tight, keep it ugly. But then that plays into the players like Mitoma's hands, where he can beat a winger, beat a fullback on his own. So I'm not sure. I'm on Mitoma. I keep switching between him and Bremo, but yeah, I
don't think
João Pedro as well. I could do. I don't know.
I mean, for me, I don't think I can go without a Brighton attacker going into this Luton game, as much as I've sort of like drifted around here and there. But I mean, for me, you know, again, I go back to the FA Cup game, which obviously I watched with great interest last year. And Grimsby actually kept them relatively quiet for the first 45 minutes. But they find ways. They have multiple routes to goals. And they've got players like Ferguson as well, who's a cracking player. I mean, there's so many assets right now. I think, Gabe, I tend to agree with you. Pedro at 5.5. It just looks too obvious right now.
I would say as well, out of any fixture in the opening weekend, this is the one most likely to have a penalty, because the way Luton play and the way that Brighton play, like with their wingers, quick wingers, and getting into the box, you can see like
the box predicted, but by the matchups also lends to that, Andy. That's a good point.
Yeah. So if there's one game to have a penalty to bet on, it'd be this one, and that. So saying that, you'd think like João Pedro would be the one to go to.
Yeah. Well, I might end up with two.
Yeah, just a quick one on the markets. So the spread markets have adjusted very quickly to João Pedro taking that penalty. He's now projected Brighton's top scorer this season on the spread betting markets with the biggest delta. So, and I think you are right as well in the chat. So I think it was Anchor saying obviously like João Pedro's only scored a couple on preseason penalties, etc. And I think you're wise to say like you're not expecting a game week 1 hat trick. So just to put it in perspective, the spread bet for João Pedro is 9.5 goals this season in total. And that puts him at Brighton's highest scorer. Ferguson is on 9.25 as Brighton's second highest scorer. And you got to go all the way down to 8 goals for Welbeck, 7.5 goals for Mitoma. So that's just something I've found quite interesting. It's an account on Twitter called Rob T FPL. And he's been updating every week how the spread markets are adjusting. So Haaland from United's come in at 10.75 projected goals. Yotta's come in at 7.5. Haaland's on 27. Kane's on 23 if he stays. Salah 19. Rashford 15. Watkins 15. Isaac 14. And your nemesis Darwin at 12 with Alvarez at 12 as well, Gabe. But it's just interesting seeing how the markets and where all the money is currently going and how fast they've adjusted to Pedro. I hope FPL managers don't adjust as fast.
I suggest we change the topic now.
Can I just say as well? Yeah, Chris, can I just say as well, with João Pedro, you don't need a return from every week because he is 5.5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think at 8 million, if you've got like Ollie Watkins, you feel like you have to have a return at that price every week.
Yeah.
At 5.5, you can live with like just some blanks or benching.
And there are really interesting, if you're into rotations, you can have a really interesting rotation with João Pedro, your 5th midfielder and a 4th defender, and really maximize home fixtures.
Chilwell's the man. And Chilwell's the man. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that Chilwell. There's that Chilwell one. Yeah, totally. I've seen that one. Okay. Everton, Fulham. Well.
The pick for 10 points.
What to say about this one?
That thing will be here for a while.
I don't think we will. Fixture difficulty is fairly neutral. The NetxG doesn't say a lot. Actually, it likes Fulham a little bit more, but remember, it probably likes Fulham with the old Mitrovic data, possibly. And of course, he's not there now. Or is he there? I don't know. But I think he is. But look, from my side of things, I was a bit disappointed that McNeil I see is injured, because he was in and out of my drafts as a 5.5 midfielder. I actually quite liked him. Calvert-Lewin, people are talking about Calvert-Lewin coming back, but he's surely to God they've got to give him a bit of time because he'll just break again. And I think that's generally what people are saying. It's going to be a long road back for him. I don't think there's an awful lot here. I'll tell you what I do like, though. I think Everton have got some pretty decent fixtures. Is Tarkowski injured or is he fit? Do we know? Because that might impact.
He took a knock, I think.
He did. And do you know what? any Pickford owners is something I would keep a very close eye on for that reason. Because I quite like Pickford, but I would want Tarkowski fit.
That does worry me. The
Braithwaite can cover. That's fine.
You think you're comfortable with that?
Gem.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm really high on Pickford.
And look, I like him at 4.5 as well. He was the first goalkeeper I put in my drafts. At the moment, I'm on an Anna, but I like him. Gabe, what's your perspective on this one? Very quickly.
I mean, just look. You can come see the slide in the show if you want to, or read the thread later. Basically, Fulham are worse without Mitrovic, making Pickford a solid option, even if Tarkowski's out. So, and especially if you have Turner, Pickford rotates well with Turner. I think other than that, there's not much to say about this game.
Okay.
Calvert-Lewin is 6 million, not fit to start the first game, the manager said. He's just completed 2 45-minute halves. He's another one to compare to Wisser in that 6 million bracket, I think, if the time comes when we need to free up funds from the forward line and pump up the midfield. So wait and see for me.
Sheffield United, Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace away, positive NetxG 1.8, positive fixture difficulty 1.4, positive defensive fixture difficulty 2.2, although I'm not quite sure about that. But Sheffield United seem to be selling all the best players. And World War III seems to be breaking out at Bramall Lane right now. So this could be, they sound a bit of a shambles. Everyone's a bit pissed off. You'd expect Bramall Lane to be a very tough place to go to, having been there many times. But it's a bloody hard place to go and get a result. But I don't know. I quite fancy Crystal Palace here. And as a little devil on my shoulder still has Johnston in my mind as the 4.5 goalkeeper. I quite like him as well. And of course, there's the discussions about Eze. I have not had him in a single draft, guys. Have any of you had him in your drafts? And could he get something today or this week?
I keep switching my 6.5 mid, and I hate it, and I can't settle. And Eze is one of those. He is the talisman for Palace now. Like, if all the good stuff will go through Eze, he's kind of your 90 minutes on pens, on set pieces. And the only thing that's put me off is the Arsenal fixture game week 2, when perhaps it shouldn't do. I also don't like going to a newly promoted team game week 1 either. I think there's more motivation there, and the crowd are more up for it after like a few months in the relegation zone. It's less daunting. But game week 1, sun's out, optimism's high. I don't like the Palace fixture game week 1 or game week 2, so that's kind of why I'm not on Eze, I think. But over the course of the season, I think he's going to tear it up, and I'm worried that game week 1 he might come out all guns blazing and do well, and I'm going to look foolish.
And there are going to be 1 million casual signings on the Sunday of game week 1 before we even get to game week 2. We really need some of these players to stay quiet till my 2 free transfers roll over into game week 3.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it should be tougher than it feels right now, that fixture. You know, it should be tougher than it feels. And maybe that's one thing which has put me off Johnston a little bit. I mean, it's long term, isn't it? Goalkeeper wise. But that's perhaps a consideration. Gabe, were you on Eze at all? Or you've had him, you've owned him before, haven't you, in previous years?
Yeah, and I have tinkered him in, but I have a similar problem to Andy here. Is anytime I start messing around with that 6.5 range, I'm just not entirely happy with it. It's it feels like for just a little bit more, that 1 million more, you can get so much more, right? So it's just hard to sit back in that 6.5 and accept what I get there. So I usually take money from somewhere else and bump it up to a 7.5.
Okay. Andy, tell us about, just before we go, tell us about last season before Vieira got sacked. You said that he shouldn't be sacked because obviously for the fixture run that was about to come, even me or you could have got those results. Is kind of I'm putting words in your mouth, but essentially I think you, with your Football Manager history, could have done as well as Roy when he came back. But
I mean, I called it the day that Vieira got sacked. I was like, why sack him now? Like, he's done all the hard graft. He's really played negatively. He's got all the results. Like, he's grinded out these draws against Liverpool, and I think he got a result against Arsenal maybe, and Man U, and playing negatively, playing horribly. So they, like, on the XGC, they looked decent because he was benching Eze and they weren't attacking, trying to keep the goal difference down, trying to grind out results. Because the end of the season, they had 10 amazing fixtures that all clumped together for some reason. And I thought it was such a harsh sacking, because I would have given the rest of the season to actually have the full range of fixtures, because Hodgson walked in and those fixtures were just delightful. And
I think if they'd gone for a
Palace
long-term
looked great.
manager, sure, but they went back to Roy. I guess what the people in the chat are saying, and this is what I was leading on to, is Roy really going to play this free-flowing, adventurous attacking football with Zaha and Elise not there? And, like, he's playing with, Eze's great. He's a talisman, but as Anchor says, he's playing with IU, Edward,
Yeah, I saw that comment, yeah.
He's playing with some... he's not exactly playing with the same caliber of players as, say, Mitoma is in that Brighton team from an attacking point of view. So I guess we'll truly see, like, does Roy go back to his standard style of football? Like, was that kind of free-flowing football just because of the fixtures? And, yeah, like, is he really going to play like this going forward into a new season? I don't know.
But does that help Eze if just, like, he's the man? Like,
He
around
becomes
him,
like Zaha, yeah, like everything just goes to him on the break.
Yeah, I think he's good enough to be that guy. So that's the thing that scares me. I don't particularly think Palace under Hodgson will be great, but any goal they do score, I expect Eze to be involved in it, which is scary.
Yeah, we did have that the XGI conversation when we talked about the mids and forwards, didn't we, Mariner? And I think Eze needs to be bumped up that, because he will be more of a talisman than we've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely going to change. Again, remember, as we say all the time with data on Net That Haul, data's data, but you've got to put the context behind that on top of that data. So, it's a guide, if nothing, especially at this time of the season when we haven't even got started and all we're looking at a bit of preseason and what happened at the end of last season. There's so many caveats. So, yeah, we've got to cut through these and avoid these false narratives, Gabe, as well. That's the other key.
As much as we can.
That's why I wanted to put in that
Otherwise, you
narrative.
get your acts out. But anyway, there we go.
I wanted to put Andy's narrative in because it feels like he called it like nearly 9 months ago, and
it's
everyone
maybe not.
else, that's what I mean. Everyone else is now coming around to that way of thinking, like
exactly
9 months after Andy.
Exactly. Okay, so
can I just say about Sheffield United just really quickly?
Oh yes, sure.
The right fullback, Ahmed what's his name? You know what I mean? I hate pronouncing it. Hamid Zotidic. I can't pronounce those names, but he's really attacking, and I think we'll see good things from him this season. At 4.5, I think he's one to watch.
His name. I just dare to say his name. I've been thinking about him all pre-season, but I've not mentioned him once because I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But no, it's yeah. I mean, if they've got any players left, as I say, it sounds like an absolute bloody shitstorm down there right now.
I think just Baldock on that point at 4 million as a wing back. He's quite exciting as an option to put in with the likes of Bayer and Kabore and some of the other 4 millions we're seeing. Yeah,
maybe. I mean, as I say, I've not had him in that. I've got Kabore in there at the moment, but I mean, let's face it, it's Luton, isn't it? And they're blanking game week 2. So, I don't know why. Anyway, things might change. Newcastle Aston Villa. Right. Okay. Fixture difficulty and NetxG, shall we say, diverge significantly here. And this is interesting. My fixture difficulty absolutely loves Newcastle at home. It has done most of the last, probably the last 6 months. It's absolutely loved them. It laps them up. It also really likes the defence as well, but I don't. Not so much, not at this fixture, because I think Watkins more than has enough possibly to get something here. I'll tell you what is interesting, though. Look at Newcastle's The other matchups, not the zonals, they're pretty neutral, but the big chance is 3.5, 12.5 shots in the box, 3.8 headers. And I tell you what, that immediately brings me back to a player who has not made a single draft my entire preseason. Trippier, not once has he made a single draft. I mean, what's his ownership?
It's very high.
It's high.
Very
yeah,
high.
It's
It's very
very
high.
high.
Shit.
It's like 30+%. Like,
So it's 30. It's 30% of people who don't go on Twitter then, because I ain't seen him in a single draft. Has anyone seen him in a draft?
No, this is the non-Twitter ownership.
Yes, it is.
35% owned.
I heard
headed
him discussed in an
headed
American
matchup.
podcast. I think
Yeah.
Americans are on him.
Yeah, that headed matchup really likes someone like Trippier here, and probably someone like Callum Wilson as well. So there we go. So, what's your perspective on this, Gabe?
Well-
Hell, I've just mentioned you've actually typed Harvey Barnes in the slide.
You
It
know,
was hidden.
he's
Was
not
hidden.
under a fraudulent coach, so maybe he can do something.
Are you going to have him in your draft then?
Barnes, no, I don't think Barnes starts the season. I don't think he'll start just yet. But I think he's that, like, when the fixtures change, I think Barnes kind of changes what Newcastle can do, and he could be an option. Just quickly on Barnes, I wrote here, I think like the introduction of Barnes when he does come in, kind of it puts Newcastle in more of a 4-2-3-1. If you think of Barnes and Tonali's used to playing in a double pivot. So he may put Bruno Guimaraes next to Tonali just to have him comfortable to start. And when Barnes is in there, he likes to combine. He likes these 1-2s. So he's going to need somebody closer to him than he'll get if he's playing a 4-3-3. So I think you're looking at a 4-2-3-1 for Newcastle when Barnes plays. But what I'll add to the Trippier comment here, Mariner, is that it's not, for some reason it's not showing up in the Newcastle zonals on the right side at 3.2.
No, that's the error. There's a little error there. I found it. Yeah.
You found it? Okay, good.
Yeah, I found it.
So,
But you only told me half an hour before the show, but yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well, that's when I was. Yeah, that's one of the last slides I did, I guess. But I think that's going to shoot up when you look at, Newcastle created 88 chances from the right, and Villa concede mostly from the flanks, 63 and 61 from the flanks compared to 49 from the center. So those kind of like three things combined really speak highly to chances created from Newcastle's right side. I mean, whoever's on the end of them, could be Callum Wilson, could be Isak, could be could be one of the defenders.
Dan Burn.
It could be Dan Burn. Who knows? But I think Trippier. I don't think they get a clean sheet. I do think Villa score, but I think Trippier gets a return.
I wouldn't be all surprised. Andy, have you considered Trippier at all?
Not in the slightest. I mean, this must be like a Reddit template or something. I don't know what's going on. Like, where's Trippier at 35% ownership with those fixtures? It's crazy. But
I think we're fixtures players, though, right? So me and you wouldn't go near him with a barge pole.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I can't see a clean sheet in most of these opening games, and I think Trippier did drop off at the end of last season.
Yeah, he did. For sure, and he did. He didn't have hardly any returns at all, did he? I mean, the only thing, I'm just thinking when I just can't recall. I just cannot recall seeing him in anything anywhere.
Has Livramento signed as well?
Yes, he has.
Yeah,
I think he has. Yeah.
Did he sign? Oh yeah.
Okay. It's pretty much. I think it's over the line.
Yeah.
So is he going to take minutes off Trippier because of the Champions League? And
maybe this is another thing, isn't it? Champions League, is this where they're going to save Trippier for the Champions League and rotate? Maybe. So obviously a whole new ball game for Newcastle this year. Really, pardon the pun.
I think Newcastle will struggle for top 4 this season with the Champions League. I'm going to put that out there. But before the season began and before everyone did their summer business, I was convinced that them and Man United were both quite close for competing for the top 4 with United, obviously. But Now I kind of see United, Liverpool, and maybe Chelsea as a dark horse. I'm not as hot on Newcastle, but someone who I do like, who I think we've all forgotten about, is Miguel Almiron. And
Wow.
I've
Yeah,
been
forget
practicing
that.
game. I'm going to keep an eye on him for later in the season, but I think we've very quickly forgotten about him. I think Isaac, I think he could be like, if you told me 3-4 years from now, Newcastle are still in the Champions League and he's their star striker, I wouldn't be shocked. I think he's super talented. I could see him being there at Newcastle for quite a while. And honestly, do you remember that assist that wasn't an assist in FPL where he went past 5 players and dribbled and passed it into the box? He is incredibly silky. I really love Isaac. But it's just, again, it's the fixtures. I can't go near the likes of Isaac, Wilson, Almiron, Trippier, even Barnes. I think Cleo makes a good point. I just hope that they do have a few blanks and that they do drop a little bit in price and I can kind of come in and get them from the bargain basement at some point. But I will have Newcastle assets, but not in game week 1. The only one I would say is Pras. He's quite maverick and long-term in his thinking. And I don't know if he still has him, but he's had Botman on his bench as a 4.5 million defender instead of a 4 million defender. And he just had him there the whole time. And I've seen his draft. So, he doesn't intend on using him, but he'd rather that guy comes off the bench for 1 point than one of these Luton or Sheffield defenders.
Why not Colwell?
I do like Colwell. I think he's now starting to appear in more drafts as opposed to Botman. You would think that Colwell at 4.5 could end up being the best 4.5 this season if all goes well.
Draft.
And just to bring Villa into this conversation as well, because we haven't really given Villa their proper treatment. Pau Torres, I think, is a nice 4-5 option as well.
I really like him.
This season.
I think Torres over Botman for me if it was a game week 1 benching draft right now. What do you think about Moussa Diaby? And obviously Watkins has become the flavor of the moment. He's in that price point to replace the likes of Nkunku, who we're hearing could be out for 2 months. That takes us up to game week 9. We've got Jesus is recovering from surgery, might not be back on the bench for a few weeks. Does that kind of lean you towards Watkins? A lot of people saying that he's steady, safe, boring, all this stuff. But when we looked at the spread market numbers that I spoke about earlier, he's currently, in terms of kind of the projected goals, he is currently the 4th highest projected scorer in the Premier League after Haaland, Kane, Salah, Rashford. So 5th, sorry. But that's pretty good. Is he really that boring? Just because, what's made us think he's boring? That's my question for you.
It's not boring. He hits the post every week. It keeps me entertained.
Mbeumo does it, but he's in every draft.
Well, yeah, true. Look, Watkins for me is more steady than explosive. If you ask me to describe him, but I really like him. I trust him to get returns actually, and I don't worry about the fixture either. He has the ability to get a return no matter where they are. So I feel he's a little bit fixture-proof in many senses. So for that reason, he's also at that price at 8 million where I can drop down. I'm very keen. I don't want to have to try and find money potentially for many positions at all, if at all.
But is this a 3-4-3? Is this Pedro and Watkins, or is it Watkins?
Well, I mean, I'm still bouncing between 3-5-2 and 3-4-3, but yeah, it could go either way. But yeah, I mean, either way, at the moment, he is sat quite solidly in as my second striker now.
What about Diaby? He's not as boring. He's been proving his numbers for years, obviously albeit in the Bundesliga, but he's 1.5 million cheaper. Is the midfield just there's too many assets and we can't fit him in game week 1?
I just think there's so many in there. It's easier to pick Watkins right now, and and I just look at it from that perspective. Really, I mean, I'm not against Diaby at all, but the trouble is, there's just so many other options in there.
But he's playing out of position, right? He's playing in the front two with Watkins, basically.
I don't know about you, but I've got 2 Arsenal and 2 United. So there's my 4. There's my 4 midfielders right away, and they ain't going anywhere.
But what about a 3-5-2 where you have Pedro and Diaby? instead of Watkins and Mitoma. It's much cheaper.
Yeah.
It gives you a Salah.
I mean,
it gives you a Trent.
I could. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I've got Mitoma in there, so it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
I'm just being open-minded to it. Obviously,
and gives you more flexibility, right? Because you can rotate those positions as well.
You can then you can, if the RB doesn't prove to be the one, then you still have like Mitoma or Mbuemo. There's other assets there to go to, right?
There's plenty to jump around. I mean, when we talk about price islands, it is that point. There's plenty of places to jump around at that price point. You're absolutely right. At the moment, I don't know. I think Watkins. I'm quite a conservative, cautious starter at FPL, and sometimes I prefer to go on the more. Gabe knows this. I prefer to go down the more cautious route than I do the more maverick route at the outset. I don't want to lose ground. What's your view, Andy? I mean, have you got any Villa assets in your drafts at the moment?
So at the moment, I haven't got João Pedro. I've got Watkins, and this is the main dilemma for me for the week is the 3-5-2. I really think I want that 6.5 million slot because there's a lot of them, like you mentioned, Diaby, Eze, Mitoma. And if I went 3-4-3 and had João Pedro in there, then, like you say, you've got the 2 Arsenal, 2 Manchester United. Then you just miss that whole 6.5 range completely, unless you come off one of the Man U Arsenal guys. And I think I'll stay at 3-5-2. And if that's the case, it will have to be Watkins because I think now that Nkunku and Jesus is out, there's no other options. And you can come off Watkins downwards. It's a lot easier.
Yes.
And then I'll have that 6.5 million slot open with, I'm going to keep 0.5 in the bank because if I need to make a switch game week 3 and my 6.5 million is 0.2 less than the one I want, then,
Cypher asks, what's the plan to move off João Pedro? Well, I think if Bruno turns out to be a dud, assisting the assister or flattering to deceive and not converting to FPL points, you just go for like a Maddison or you go to all the way down from just drop a mil and go up to a Wissa or someone else in the attack, I think. So I think with 2 free transfers in game week 3, like the flexibility is there to move off Pedro should you need. But I just see Pedro as I don't see him as the 11th man. I see him in the 11th man slot on rotation, like you guys were saying, like with a Chilwell. So it's like a 5.5 million defender with a 5.5 million forward. If Pedro drops off a cliff or stops playing, I'll just play Chilwell every week, as far as I'm concerned, until I've managed to get 2 free transfers and get out the mess. But that's my way of thinking about it anyway.
I mean, do you think that, if I did just drop Watkins to Pedro, so I've got 2.5 million spare and not change anything else, do you just upgrade the bench? Do you just change a 4.0 defender to a 5.0 and have 1.5 in the bench? So you've got a deep squad. I know you're going to get points. You either go look at your bench and think, oh, he's got points, but is it just better to go that way if you want to do that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you're taking a little bit of a chance, but what you're doing is you're hedging it by just strengthening your bench up that little bit to just protect you. It's a bit like if you went Alvarez, I suppose, up front. I've seen a few people doing that and saying, "Oh, it's not so bad." I think it was Siva from FPL Banger. He said something similar. He said, "Oh, it's okay. I can't ignore him at this price, but I'll just put someone who's decent on the bench just in case it doesn't happen." You can. It's the beauty about this game, Andy. You can play it in so many different ways.
You can.
There's no right or wrong way, is there?
Apart from João Pedro's on pens and he's against Luton.
He'll be 6 million by game week 3.
Remember, this is Gabe's narrative. This is Gabe's narrative. I'm going to be getting my axe out. If I put Pedro into my side and Gross takes that penalty, I'll be posting an axe to Phoenix.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Yeah. Just one question.
I might have a long-term illness if that happens, man.
You'll be moving out quick because I'll be sending an axe.
In the post. So I think just one thing on Mitoma, and let's go to the next matchup. But so Mitoma in the first half of the season, he was overperforming his numbers quite significantly. And I saw some stuff today that actually he was putting up much better underlying numbers in the second half where he then wasn't converting. So, we all talk about like wanting lively players we enjoy watching. And then, I don't know, like everyone suddenly went off Mitoma. He was in like every game week 1 draft. He still got very high ownership. But I think that 1 million cheaper for Pedro albeit he could play anywhere. He could play striker 10. He could play on the wings. Like, you don't know where he's going to be, but surely someone that versatile that was the record signing and could play anywhere. It's kind of like, if he pops in game week 1 against Luton, everyone will have him by game week 3 or 4. Like, you're not going to gain anything from him after that. So for me, it's like I want a ticket to that lottery. Like, I know what I get from Watkins. I don't know what I get from Pedro. So for me, it's just like, yeah, maybe I buy a ticket to this train and pray that he's the 5.5 that hauls, and then I just sit there, enjoy the price rises, and figure it out later. But obviously,
the most popular transfer in after game week 1 will be Haaland to Pedro.
yeah. Haaland to Darwin when he comes off the bench and scores in the 100th minute.
And someone else to Salah. Here we go. And someone to Salah as well.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Right, let's go. Anyway, we've got 3 more matchups to do. We better keep going. Brentford, Tottenham. This is an interesting one. Obviously, no Tony. Posto is flagged 75%, but it's a dead leg, I think it said, which again just throws another spanner in the works, doesn't it? for the whole thing. The actual matchup really likes Brentford, unsurprisingly, Gabe. I think, again, those who've been watching Net That Haul long enough know how much our metrics absolutely detest Spurs' defence.
Dripping with bias. Our metrics are dripping with bias.
It just bloody hates it. I mean, look, Brentford have got a 4.4 headed matchup.
That's Tony against Eric Dyer.
And this is why it's important to, as you say, put some of your own context into the narrative.
Exactly. This is why I'm laughing about it. But no, with all seriousness, Brentford should, according to these metrics, do rather well. Now, of course, things are slightly different. Goodness knows what's happening about Harry Kane. I've seen Harry Kane finally start to appear in people's drafts now. But I even looked at a draft trying to get Harry Kane in this morning for the first time in ages. We'll have to see what happens here. As it stands, I don't have any from either of these two teams in my drafts. Gabe, first things first, on the way the fixture's looking like it's going to play out, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I'm not buying the positive stats for Brentford, and I'm actually not.
What? You normally hate Spurs.
I do, and I normally like Brentford, and I'm kind of putting my bias on its head here, because I think we need to increase the Spurs' attacking stats and decrease both Brentford's attacking and defensive stats. The main reason, as far as Brentford is concerned, and I did this whole thing on the Mbomobile and what a good option he was, because he's like he wasn't the first option, but the first option is Wissa trying to get behind center back, so that option is obviously like it closes down quite a bit. So Mbommo is like that next option across the board. He does a bunch of different things. But Brentford have lost more than just Tony. That Raya is not coming back. And that connection, that long ball from Raya to Tony on that left-hand side is so important to the way Brentford build the ball up, to the way they defend in terms of like a safety valve, just getting out of trouble. And they're not going to have that anymore. 5'9" and like featherweight Wissa is not going to win those balls. Shada doesn't have the mobility or the kind of the tactical know-how to know how to get those balls. And 5'7" or 170 centimeter Mbeumo is not going to get those either. So I think Brentford are a bit of a broken side, a broken team here without having addressed certain areas of need. Now Flecken can hit that ball. That's obviously why they brought him in. But there's nobody to receive it. So it's about that connection, and that connection is going to be broken. So I think Tottenham can take advantage of that. I think they will. I do think Brentford score because Postecoglou is just so attacking, and Tottenham are still poor defensively. But Postecoglou has shown us what Tottenham are going to do already this season in preseason, right? And it's much like what we've seen, like the modern football. The trend is inverting the fullbacks, underlapping from those positions, using wide areas in the corners to progress the ball forward, and dominating in possession, which is something that's new for Spurs. But additions like Maddison are really helping them with that kind of transition and identity. And since Maddison is so central to keeping possession and creating with possession, I really like him as an asset. I brought him into my most recent draft. I actually have a Spurs player in my most recent draft to start the season. Shockingly, I know. Maddison.
What?
Yeah, I brought him in. I like what I've seen preseason lately, and I see Postecoglou's systems and patterns of play really being implemented quite a lot earlier than I expected. I've seen him in preseason, so that's given me. I'm not ready to go full in with Maddison and Kane, but it's definitely a consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I just need to sit and wait a little bit longer, but with Spurs. Andy, what's your perspective? Have you got any Spurs assets in your drafts? And any Brentford ones for that matter?
No, again with Spurs, it's a wait and see for me. I think preseason they've been good. They've been attacking well, but the opposition has been quite easy. They've not really been tested. I like stuff at Spurs. Richarlison, if Kane leaves, is going to be good. But I want to wait and see what happens. They got relatively tough opening 2 before the fixtures get easier in 3. So it might be that I move to one of the 4.5 fullbacks or Maddison, but not at the moment. I think there's other options for me. But I think we'll have Spurs players in our teams sometime.
Yep. Yeah, I think wait and see.
How
Should we keep going?
What do you guys think about Mbumo? Does this change your perspective on Mbumo?
Well, I mean, he's flagged right now, isn't he? So, I mean, is he even fit?
I've taken him out, but I do like him. If he's,
I like him.
I mean, if Frank comes out on Thursday, Friday and says, look, he's fit, it was a dead leg, and Mbumo's ready to go, then it makes another tough decision whether I go Matoma or Mbumo or Eze.
It's a bloody nightmare. You'd end up
it's horrible.
Multiple coin tosses. Where's that damn cat of mine when I need him? Bloody.
I hope for my sake and my sanity that Mbumo is out, so that's one less decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose so. Should we keep going? Go quickly rattle through the Chelsea Liverpool, because this is
can you just add any comments? So Thingamabob, I think if you go back, I think in the Defenders episode with Craig Kemp from Man on Pod, he did have some Sade love. So we did talk a little bit more about Sade from Brentford. Then
he's gone very quiet, hasn't he? No one's mentioning him now. It's about point. I looked yesterday. It's 0.2% owned. 0.2.
He could be that ultra differential we're all looking for, who actually benefits from Tony being out more than Wissa and Mbumo. But I think
why would Shada benefit more?
So he was saying that he expects him to be the one to actually go and try and knock the ball down and receive the ball from the goalkeeper and like pass it for the assists and things. So he would be like the main target man, he was saying, potentially, rather than actually, because he was saying the target man was coming in off the left, I think.
Yeah, and Shada did play the left at the end of last season, but the thing is, Shada doesn't have the mobility or tactical kind of like astuteness that Tony has. So he may come receive the ball. He does have that big body. I don't know how good his control is to receive the ball and then play a pass, and then that pass that he plays will likely be the assist to the assist if something does end up happening from it. He'll be a little bit far away from the ball.
But yeah, go back to the Defenders episode, as non-intuitive as that may sound, Thingamabob, and you will hear more about Sade in the Defenders episode. Sorry. Let's go to Chelsea-Liverpool. This game is very famous for a lot of 0-0s recently in tight, cagey affairs.
And do you know what? That fixture difficulty, look at that. 1.1, 1.1, 1.1, 1.1. That suggests a tight game. And none of the zonals light up. None of the big chances, really, things like that, light up. Gabe, your shot goal predictors doesn't light up either. Shots on target doesn't either. Could we be? Am I gonna suffer from a Trent Alexander-Arnold clean sheet here? I mean, what did you say? It rains in the desert occasionally. Do you know what? It rained in the desert here on Saturday.
There you go.
44 degrees, and then it rained. There we go. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think Chelsea score, and I think Chelsea score because what Liverpool have shown in preseason is that their defense. Look, the counter press somewhat fixed their defensive concerns in the last 10 games of last season, but that right side where Trent moves forward or tucks in or inverts or whatever they're doing, they're still weak to long balls into that channel, and that's I see like a diagonal ball from Reece James to Mudryk or even Chilwell, and getting somebody, especially Mudryk, getting somebody in space, getting like if it's Konate that has to come over and defend him because he's behind Trent. Mudryk 1v1 in space. He's a dribbler. He'll get into the box. So I think something's going to happen from Chelsea's left-hand side. I actually, like a 1-1. I kind of agree with the data here, the NetxG and the FDR. 1-1 sounds about right. I could see from the Liverpool perspective. Here's the one thing about Liverpool. Everyone kind of agrees that Liverpool is moving towards or moving back to their counter-pressing style. If that's the case, then there's no case to be made to start Darwin over Jota. Jota is their counter-pressing or their pressing specialist. So that's why I've been so high on Jota all preseason. And he's in my draft. He'll remain in my draft. I think Jota could create some havoc with that pressure. And Pochettino, new coach, new system. So I think Liverpool could disrupt them a little bit. A 1-1 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about starting Chilwell, I've got to be honest. But it's maybe now looked at this, I'm not so sure.
Well, I have Salah at the moment and Chilwell, and I'm starting them both, and it feels very counterintuitive.
Yeah. Andy, your perspective, you've got Chilwell in your drafts. Are you going to start him?
I've actually got Chilwell and Trent both starting.
Right.
And not for the clean sheet potential, but just the attacking purposes. I like my defenders attacking. I don't even care about the clean sheets. I mean, Trent and Chilwell for me are just two attackers.
It's probably a good job with Trent.
Yeah, no, like
Trent hitting the space behind Chilwell. That side is just going to be fire, I think, in that game.
No, I love Chilwell. I love the Chilwell pick. He's really excited me this year, as long as he stays fit.
I mean, Chilwell's not nailed. It's the draft I have at the moment. I mean, looking at the Arsenal defensive data, do I just switch Chilwell for Gabriel? But it just feels a bit safe and a bit meh. And I think I like Chilwell for a long period of time. I think there are holes in him. And if Chelsea do get a clean, you'd expect him, like in certain games, to get double digits.
I think you're trying to get ahead of the template in a way, because if we think Chelsea are going to be kind of the highly bought in players, say game week 3, game week 4, when the fixtures turn as well, if you've already got one or two Chelsea players there, you might find other opportunities to attack. Whereas people who've like booked in transfers for Chelsea players like Watkins to Jackson, Estupinan to Chilwell, if you've already got like those two earmarked as moves out, what are you going to do, right? If suddenly another amazing option emerges, you've suddenly got 3 or 4 players you need or want. So I like the idea of avoiding that early wildcard if possible and starting with.
It's one of the reasons why I put Colwill into one of my drafts as well, alongside Chilwell, actually. Because I was thinking, do I? He's only 4.5. It sounds like he's fairly nailed. I'm not so sure about Chelsea's defensive prowess, so maybe it's not the best thing to do. But those two fixtures, game week 3 and 4, are really tasty.
The models agree with you, Mariner. So the models on FPL Review have 2 Chelsea defenders in game week 1, and you move to a third Chelsea defender on the optimal path of the machine. So it would make sense that you, a numbers man, are already preempting that.
I refuse to have my team picked by a robot.
Unless you can put your own biases into the robot.
Unless I have my own robot.
Unless you created that robot.
Unless I've created the robot, yeah.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I could certainly see a scenario where we've discussed already, where I do go Watkins to João Pedro, and then that means I can upgrade one of my a 4.0 defender to Gabriel, and then bench Chilwell game week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's there ready for game week 3.
That sounds like a perfect situation for Chilwell at Hall.
Yes, exactly.
Always.
Joe Pedro off on the 58th minute for Enciso, and
This is why I almost think, I almost daren't bench Chilwell.
yeah, it's scary.
I
to
almost
bench Chilwell.
daren't bench him.
What do you think about obviously with the Nkunku news that it could actually be a couple of months? The swap deal for Lukaku and Vlahovic seems to have gone a bit cold. Is it a concern that Chelsea are looking for a striker? Will they ramp that up with the Nkunku injury? Or does this give Jackson more minutes potentially? Because he's obviously played primarily just a striker in the preseason and he's looked good, but we always say preseason is about building up fitness and bedding in players. It wouldn't be the first time someone had a fantastic preseason and went on to do horribly. Liverpool, I think, lost all their preseason games almost the year they won the Premier League. So it's not always the best marker, but is Jackson someone who excites you more at $500,000 cheaper than Watkins? Does the Nkunku news benefit him from a minutes point of view, do you reckon?
I think he's a full million cheaper, right?
Yeah, he's 7 million. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's not even 7.5, and Nkunku was 7.5. God,
yeah. Here's the thing with Jackson, and I've watched him at Villarreal. He's he does have potential, but he's a raw player, and he'll be extremely inconsistent. So what you've seen in preseason, you might see it in a game here or there, based on the past. Like who knows how. But these things kind of like cast some doubt on how long it'll take him to adapt to the actual Premier League game. So I mean, I think he will be a good player, but the pick is a little punty for my liking anyway.
Mudryk is 6.5, right?
Yeah, 6.5.
Yeah, he's right there, that sweet spot where you're debating. There's another headache for you.
Yeah, imagine all the 6.5s flop, and then everyone who has Mbeumo, Mitoma, and Diaby, they all pile into Mudryk come game week 3. Shit, man.
Yeah, I like Mudryk as well. Another 6.5 mid. He's
no temptation from you, Andy, to do what you did last season with the 4 8 millions, but with 4 6.5s and get Haaland and Kane in your draft.
Haaland, Kane, Salah, and 4 6.5.
Yeah, and Trent.
Yeah.
And Trent.
A little temptation. I'll see if I can fit it in.
My bloody head hurts with that 6.5 range, My head hurts with that 6.5 million range. It really does.
A tough one.
Right. Last one.
Just go back as well. Just briefly, Trent is been in my draft every draft. He's too
every
good.
draft.
Every draft. He's too good.
Right. I mean, do you know what? He hadn't been in a single draft of mine, and I was amazed how few drafts we saw him, and that and that Wreck My Team episode.
We were waiting for him to show up for a while before we discussed him. He didn't show up.
It was ages before we saw him. I mean, apart from
I had Trent all
apart from
pre-season.
Ducky, I kept having my duck shoot with Ducky, but I mean, he kept mentioning him. But
I did have Trent all pre-season from July when the game launched, but that was before I kind of tried to fit in Salah. So I think it's either or for me, and I don't see myself going with neither. So I'm still kind of in two boats. So I'm still thinking about that. Like I might move a City defender back to Trent and move off of Salah, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, Andy, about you don't have them for defensive returns. It's probably good, really. Good job, really. I mean, the only thing is are they playing? Is he? I mean, it's like Stones the other day playing in a flat back four, right? All of a sudden, the moment that the positional everything changes with the positions, do we then start thinking again? I don't know. I mean, Trent's
going to play right back, number 6, in centre mid, right wing, everywhere.
Yeah, I think for me, Trent is like right now on those kind of spread betting markets. We talked about goals, but for assists, I think he's still like second or third for the kind of projected assists this season. So,
and we need to think beyond these concepts of static formations into situational formations. So to your point, Andy, yes, Trent will play the 6. He'll play the 7. He'll play the 2. He'll move around all over those positions, and that'll happen a lot for a lot of teams, especially the more skilled teams and the more tactically skilled managers.
And I think if you're predicting 1-1 with this fixture, if there's a goal and assist for either team and Trent gets the assist, he'll get maximum bonus because it's Trent and what he does in the game. So if it finishes 1-1, Trent gets the assist. What's
You
that?
could be looking at 7-8 points. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if Chilwell gets the other assist or goal, you're laughing.
Hypotheticals, we love it. Yeah.
We love it. And any thoughts on Liverpool?
right.
Because we talked a lot about Chelsea. Just before we go to the captaincy metric.
No, we've got another fixture yet.
We got one more matchup to do.
Okay. Yeah. So for
United
Liverpool, we'll
Wolves.
talk about them in the metric because I'm sure they show up. But obviously, I just can't go a show without mentioning Darwin to see Gabe. But I think a lot of Liverpool fans today, they felt their lineup was potentially the lineup they go into game week 1 with. And Gakpo did play in the middle as well, obviously with the injury, I think, is it to McAllister? So that's one to keep an eye out on. Pretty much every attacker from Liverpool was in that lineup, bar Darwin. So, I don't think I can go there, but I know there are some drafts that still have him.
Well, there are arguments being made that since they're playing 3 minutes of extra added time at the end, then Darwin's back in the conversation. So
I think to counter that, and we will go to United, is someone did say in the chat, it's a good point about game state. And those 3 minutes are perhaps slightly more chaotic than, like, say, the first 3 minutes of the game. But again, it depends on what the game state is. Like, if you're losing 4-0, how chaotic is it going to be? Whereas if it's a 1-goal deficit, then maybe if the other team digs in and tries to get the equalizer, that's a bit more of a cagey affair. But let's go to United Wolves and then the captaincy metric. And I've starred a bunch of questions from the live chat that we're going to put up on screen and get Andy's input on as well.
Well, all we need is an amber row here, and we could have a nice traffic light, couldn't we, on this slide? So basically, Manchester United, my fixture difficulty absolutely loves this fixture, but Wolves were absolutely bloody awful at the end of last season, away from home particularly, and this is really not surprising. They hardly created a thing, and they conceded quite a bit. 5.5 fixture difficulty for Manchester United. That is incredibly high. The central matchup is really high as well for Manchester United, 5.2. Big chances, 3.9. Shots on target, 7.8. 12.5 shots in the box. Gabe, your shot goal predictor is also bright green. 3 goals on shot goal, 20% for 3, 14% for 4. 50, what's that? 53, 61% of 2 or more for shots on target. Suggests to me that I want 2 Manchester United attacking assets. Very, very straightforward here. And also, I am a bit nervous about not owning a Manchester United defensive or goalkeeping asset for this fixture, probably going forwards. But I just feel that there'll be a fair chunk of people on. I've not checked the EO for Manchester United defence, but I would imagine there's a fair chunk on between Onana and Shaw. So for me, I'm on 3 Manchester United right now: Onana, Rashford, and Fernandes. Gabe, talk about the fixture, and then we'll bring everybody else into debated.
I'm curious about this one because all the data is kind of like telling us one thing, but Lopetegui is a good manager, and he's had an off season with Wolves. I don't think Wolves they won't be able to create much other than some like chaotic goal here or there. But I don't think this game's going to get out of control either. I don't think Manchester United is going to just turn Lopetegui's team over in the first game of the season. Rashford should start at the 9, most likely, with Garnacho on the left wing at the 11 spot. I'm most interested in Bruno Fernandes in this one. I like that central matchup for United at 5.2. I do see that, just the way Wolves play. I do see that opening up for United. But I think everything else, even like Wolves, they would grind out results, even having poor stats. And I think they're going to continue doing that. I think that's mostly because of Lopetegui. I could see like a 2-0 win for United. So I'm not fully on board with their attack yet. I want to see it. I want to see it first, I guess. So this is one where I only have Bruno Fernandes, and I recently brought in Onana when I dropped the player to Mudryk, because Manchester United defense is just like overall is super highly owned. You have Shaw at 28%, Onana at 25%. So just like between those two, you have like a 50% ownership of United defense.
There's some Wan-Bissakas and Dallows out there as well. Some rogue.
Yeah, and then they're under 10 or like 5%. So they're more negligible, but it's just overall the ownership is there. So if it's the goalkeeper is a nice way to like Onana is just a nice way to not think about goalkeeper too much and just maybe play that position as coverage.
I mean, everything I've heard about Wolves and Lopetegui is that they really are very concerned about how they're going to do this season. There's some real negative stuff coming out of there as well.
Well, there's some noise as well. There's some noise that so Team News and Ticks, who generally is a bit of an ITK, said something along the lines of one of the Premier League managers may not be there come game week 1, and Mateus in the chat has now heard the Wolves coach may leave. So
and
that is a bit of a
this
concern.
is what I heard there was some negative stuff going around. I mean, I'm really bullish on this, quite frankly. Andy, what's your perspective?
It's a very favourable fixture for Manchester United. I think you can't see anything but a clean sheet and a win. I'm on Bruno Fernandes. I'm on Rashford. I made a conscious decision to do a couple of things to go against the crowd, even though I'm quite template as a team. One was to not captain Haaland because I didn't fancy the fixture, and I think I can go against it, either in captain Rashford or Saka, but also not to have a Manchester United defender. And that's not necessarily because of this fixture. I mean, I'd love it if Wolves got a goal, but I think game week 2 they got Spurs, game week 4 they got Arsenal. If they can just concede against Wolves, fingers crossed, something goes in with the 2 tough fixtures in 2 and 4. I'm hoping those Zonana and Shaw owners are thinking, look at their teams, thinking, this goalkeeper and defender's not doing great compared to others. So I've gone against it, but I would say there's going to be a clean sheet game week 1, but I'm just keeping everything crossed that they do concede.
Any love for Anthony, guys? He looked a lot better at the second half of last season towards the tail end. He's done all right in the preseason as well. And any thoughts there? Because I'm seeing Bruno and Rashford in a lot of teams, or just one of Bruno or Rashford. But what are your thoughts? Is Anthony too much of a punt in game week 1?
I think so,
I would say he's the head of Sancho in the pecking order right now. So what would that front line look like? You got Bruno and Mount, one of them playing a bit deeper, one at like an 8 or a 6, one at like a 10. You got Rashford.
Maybe so many other options in midfield. Not going to punt on Anthony, I don't think.
Yeah, he's not worth it compared to others. I'd rather Maddison, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would favour Mount over Anthony if I was to go there, but I'm not going to. But
yeah, just trying to think of what other kind of United attacker might be viable. And on that note,
Garnacho?
Yeah, so someone asked about Garnacho. So
yeah,
Ujan, good to see you. Yos, what are your? Oh, that's the Gakpo question, but there was definitely a question about Garnacho. Here it is from Son of Sam. What's your guys' take on Garnacho? He's looked very good. I think Garnacho looks like a fantastic player. What do you
start game week 1, but he might not start game week 2.
I think he's good for the first game for sure, as you say, but it's just that.
How much is he? But how much is he? 5 mil?
Yeah, 5 mil. Yeah.
Bench him then. So have a stronger bench and do what you've said before.
Garnacho, Pedro, and Chilwell in a freeway rotation. There we go. With Salah in a 4-4-2.
And then maybe
bench don't boost, need. Let's go.
And maybe then you don't need. Maybe then you can save some money out of your Bruno Rashford conundrum and find some money to go somewhere else with that. It's a thought, isn't it? If he's good for a few weeks,
he's good for 1 week.
1 week is good part. Yeah, 1 week is good. If he does very well, certainly he'll probably get the second game too. But
I don't think so.
He's a ticking time bomb.
He's not going to keep Højlund on the bench. Garnacho is not going to keep Højlund.
I think Højlund's out for a while, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah. So you could get a few good fixtures out of Garnacho.
This is the thing, right?
It's just whether Sancho has he done enough to come and take a spot back.
Why is Højlund out so long?
He had an injury at Atlanta, I think, and he was still carrying it into this. So he's not really done any preseason, right? And he's not up to match fitness. He's got to go to training, and I'm sure you could see a world where he's on the bench by the 3rd week or so. But like if there was ever a time for Garnacho, I think it's game week 1. I don't think you can kind of wait and see if he's nailed. Like you just got to hit and hope, I think. But the question is, are United going to score many goals? That's the real question. I think in this fixture, sure.
Yeah,
but then when you look at the second and fourth fixture that Andy mentioned from a defensive point of view, even from an attacking point of view, like Rashford is the main man. Bruno will continue creating. But Mount is someone I'm quite interested in to keep an eye on as well now. I think it's really difficult with the likes of kind of United and even like Arsenal, Brighton. Like, I just think these deeper squads will rotate more than we think this year. I think last year's toll hasn't been shown yet. There was a World Cup in the middle of a season. People then went away after the season ended to play in internationals like the Nations League, qualifiers for other international tournaments. Like some players, I'm sure they played in 6 or 7 different tournaments last season. Like at some point, I think that's going to catch up and these deeper squads are going to have to rotate to an extent. But yeah, I think pre-Champions League, pre-Højlund coming back, this might be the time. Like I honestly think like is now or never. And if you're doing a draft league, I'm sure you can get Garnacho quite late on. So I always love to talk about these picks because not everyone in the chat just plays FPL, and some of these picks are fantastic options in other formats or draft or versions of the game where CDMs actually get points.
Cool. Garnacho is great. Yeah, he's great.
I really like him. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about him. I just worry about his minutes long term, but I genuinely really like the player, and I think he's a fantastic talent.
I think we'll see. I mean, it's just again, if you're trying to just get away from that template just that little bit, and try and avoid and trying to eke out that little bit of extra money here or there, maybe that's an option. It's something I'm going to have a think about for sure. But as I say, I've been very set on Bruno and Rashford now for what seems since I created my team. Actually, I think they're the only 2 players who probably I never tinkered out. But anyway, there we go. Nemo, rather than doing we've got the first 5 matchup summaries and game week 1 matchup summaries, but I think what we'll probably do with those is we'll jump to the captaincy given the time, because I guess there's a lot of questions, because we can go back and see that data in the earlier preseason shows. It's all there anyway, all the other stats. So if anybody wants to go back and get summaries of game week 1, and in fact game week 1 to 5, you can actually pick those up on the previous week's shows. And we'll put them on, and I'll post them on Twitter as well. I
think what you can do even is for podcast viewers as well on YouTube. I think you can just put it up on the screen for like 3 seconds, and
all right. So
I'll put people want to
one matchup summary on now, and then we'll just whilst we're talking. So hang on a second, let me put it up there. So hang on,
because then people can just pause the show when they coming up to the deadline.
Game week 1. So 1:57:50 game week 1, and then give it to 1. Put it up for 10 seconds, and then there we go. Where am I going? What's happening with the computer? There we go. First 5. There we go.
It's definitely not me this time pressing buttons up.
No, it's the computer. It's got like a lag on it for some reason. I don't know what's going on. And there's the summary. There's the first 5. So okay, should we have a look at the captaincy?
Yeah, should we play the captaincy jingle real quick?
Yeah.
And while you're here, guys, we appreciate all the support. I will read out some of the poll results after the captaincy metric when we do the Q&A. And shout out all our haulers who've supported us. I'm going to gift a random membership in a moment too while the guys talk about the captaincy metric. So hopefully if you're in the live chat and you get the gifted membership, contact me if you're struggling to join the Discord server. But you can get automatic access to Discord as well with the community. So other than that, let's go to the captaincy metric.
Alrighty. And its format's gone to shit, but anyway, never mind. Let's not worry about that. So what can we say about this? Well. The captaincy metric. We have Rashford at the top. And that isn't really that surprising, given the fact that his numbers, his stats just have been pretty good, albeit, not still, 67 minutes. This is by percentile, 61 haul, 76 return, 96 points. The matchups, fixture difficulty is 96, NetxG is 82. but his involvement is very high. Big chance involvement is 96, and his zonal involvement is 99. So I think what you're seeing here, and again, we've seen this quite a bit. We saw this last week, didn't we, Gabe? With these players, the XG is not shared around. Both Rashford and Bruno tend to be XG monsters, and they tend to gobble it. They tend to gobble it up between the two of them, whereas other teams tend to share it out a little bit more. And I think we're seeing this here. The fixture is very, very good. But Rashford, even with average of 73 minutes there against Haaland's 72, is actually quite a way in front on this. And the reason he's in front is because of the fixture difficulties, because the fixture difficulty is seen as a tougher fixture for Manchester City away at Burnley than Manchester United at home to Wolves. So you see Rashford first, Haaland second, Bruno third, Kane sitting fourth, and look at his numbers. Kane's numbers are great. If you don't trust that fixture, and Gabe, you mentioned that, and you were throwing caveats around about Spurs defense, Spurs attack, sorry. If you ignored that attack and look at the red for the fixture difficulty in NetxG, look, if you see that, he would be much, much higher on the basis of that. And it will not surprise me if Kane is still at Spurs in the coming weeks. We will see a Kane captaincy quite soon on this captaincy metric. Quite soon indeed. Then you got Salah, you've got Umposto sat there with the 75% fitness. That would have pushed him back up to about second. But what I was going to do, Gabe, whilst we talk about this, what we're going to do this year is we're going to do something different, aren't we? Because what we've been messing around with during the postseason is to actually put the spreadsheet onto the screen, and then we can adjust things. So first things first, if we were to say if we agreed that Kane's fixture was great, right? So what we're going to say, let's say we take it up to 96. It puts him top. Now, I'm not saying that that fixture is that good. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's 80. He's still top. Kane is a very, very good option, even this week, right? Even this week. If you were to take the minutes out, and again, feel free to shout anything else you see out, but if I was to just neutralize all the minutes, right? I don't know why I put average minutes of 100. Maybe that's because of injury time. But let me just do that, right? And you see that. And that pushes Brian Bruno back up there, right up there, actually.
Second, Mbumo second is crazy.
Mbumo and Holland right there together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a call that someone said that your machine's broken, Mariner.
No, it's not broken.
So if Thomas Frank comes out and says Mbeumo's fit, ready to go, he's my other option to Haaland. Gameweek 1.
I mean, look, I'm not saying what we're saying is that Spurs defense has been pretty shaky away from home for some time. Now, of course, things change. Things change, don't they? I think this is just an option. Personally, if it was me, the ones that I trust here are Rashford and Haaland. If I go anywhere other than Haaland, it will be Rashford. Rashford was captained on the metric 6 times last year. He returned every single time. He's the only player who this captain metric who returns every single week.
What if so? The FDR and the NetxG for some reason have the Holland's matchup as worse than Rashford's. What if you make them the same?
I love that you're toying with the data live on air so that we can see what changes.
No, make NetxG the same.
All right, 82. Same.
Tie.
What happens if you put Saka's
I don't
whole
think
percentile up?
Wolves is an easier fixture for United than Burnley is for City.
Yeah, you've got this love for you've got this Lopetegui love, right? And I don't see it. I mean, everybody's saying that he might not even be there at the weekend. I mean, it could be a shit
weren't
show.
even in the league last year. You're comparing a Premier League team with not a Premier League.
I'm talking about a team who might not even have a coach at the weekend.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's all. I mean, look, you're absolutely right. This is where the beauty of this is. This is just numbers. This is just that if you adjusted this, if you think this is higher, if you think that's higher. I mean, you could say, oh, if Bruno had have. If somebody had bothered to finish anything which Bruno created at the end of last season, do you know what I mean? Rather than no hole. So let's say Bruno has that, he all of a sudden jumps top or right to the top. So what I'm saying, it's actually, I think the simple thing to say here is it's a lot closer than it looks.
Yeah.
I think that's the simple thing to say. Andy, what's your perspective on all this? I mean, we've been messing around with this metric for 3 or 4 years. Generally speaking, it has about an 80% success rate. We've done one thing different this year. And after Gabe moaning at me vehemently in pre-season, saying, why do we always use Hub's data? Why do we always use Hub's predicted points? Because how do they predict those points?
We didn't build those robots.
So I took it out. So now all I'm doing now is I'm using our own data instead of a predicted points, but I'm still using big chance involvements and zonals. But what's your view, Andy?
I've always looked at this captaincy metric and thought, brilliant. It's a brilliant tool. I trust it, and I have trusted it before. I'm trying to think of the example last season where I went. Was this Fernandez? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, my captain's not on there, which is scary.
I can find him.
Can you change some of his numbers?
There he is. He's here.
So FPL Blue says, how come Arsenal are 9% for 4+ goals, the highest, yet their players, the team with the most midfield double-digit hauls last season, is so low?
Because they're not hauling. Look, there's Martinelli's no hauls.
Spreading it around.
Spreading it around, and this is Net That haul. It's not Net That goal.
Well, what happens if you change Saka's haul percentile from 2?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just intrigued. Like, if everything else stayed the same,
absolutely, it knocks him up to 71. But he's
but then where does that get him? Not that high, still, right?
Just above Solly March.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's under Gibbs. He's under Gibbs White. He's under Gibbs White. I know Gibbs White's on pens, and he's talisman, I guess. But yeah.
I think
this is the thing. It looks at involvement, and it looks at the fixture, and it thinks, well, quite frankly, at the moment, I mean, let me try and shrink this down a bit. There's Saka. Look. So what does it not like? It likes his minutes. It doesn't like it's his hauls and his returns. His returns are really low as well. So.
Yeah, but I could counteract that. I could counteract.
Of course, you can caveat it. Of course, you can. But this is what I love about this.
Yeah, but the caveat is pretty massive, right? The caveat is Arsenal were burnt out, didn't have a deep squad, and Saliba, the guy who plays on the right and builds up play, was gone for Rob Holding. Like you look at that refreshed team playing Forest at home, at 12:30 kickoff with the home fans. I expect no less than 10-point minimum from Saka. So I'm with Andy.
I would say that in Chris's defence, that if you're betting on someone to score 8 points, Saka will be a lot higher because it's likely that he will get that one return. So
if you're betting on 10+ points, yeah.
If you're looking for a safe captaincy shout who's likely to get a return, it's Saka. And is that enough to beat Haaland? Maybe that's my thinking. Like, I'm not haul potential wise, it could be.
It'd be interesting to see if you looked at I haven't looked at the predicted points for this week. I really haven't looked, but it'd be interesting to see who is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Hub. Who's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Hub, Nima? Come on,
I'm opening my app. I haven't written there for many years, but I still have my membership to every tool that exists under the sun. Points prediction.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Only game week 1, yeah?
Yeah.
Haaland 8.2 points, Rashford 6.5 points, Bruno 6.2 points, Kane 6.1 points, Saka 5.9, Salah 5.9, Odegaard 5.8, Martinelli 5.4, De Bruyne 5.4, and Mitoma wraps it up at 5.3.
Okay, so it got 4 out of the top 5.
Yeah.
So the only one it's not seeing is Saka, and there maybe is the caveat there, which is there. So let's this is the beauty. I don't mind putting this on the screen and having a debate about it. And this is going to be the different way of doing Net That Haul this year. Is that what we're going to do? Is we're going to put this up and we're going to pick it to bits because there are multiple caveats for this metric, and we have to think about it. So are we happy? I mean, Rashford captain. Gabe, are you first thing, Andy? Who are you going to captain? You said it, Rashford or Saka?
I mean, I've had the armband on Rashford over the summer, but I have switched to Saka because I really like that fixture. But
yeah,
seeing this, like the haul potentially could be from Rashford. Yeah.
By the way, Gabe, before you answer, FPL Blue says free gifted membership if Gabe states there's a universe where the stats clearly indicate a Haalandless draft is optimal.
I haven't visited that universe.
maybe Wednesday, Blue. We'll try a gifted membership then.
Anyway, we're 2 hours and 11 into this show, and I need my beauty sleep. So can we get to some questions?
Haven't had that in a while, have you, man?
But no, I mean, look, in closing, I think I will be captaining Haaland, and that is going to be an EO play because it's game week 1, and I don't want to get burnt if indeed he does go off and he's highly owned. Do I think on another day, if this was later in the season, would I be captaining Rashford? I think I probably would. And that's an interesting thought process for me to think about as to whether I captain Rashford for that reason. And that's something I'm going to have a good, solid think about because this goes back to a game week 36 Callum Wilson scenario for me because I do trust Rashford. I do trust him.
I think we're going to see where we're at on Thursday, the lay of the land. If we hear Haaland doesn't start and Alvarez does, maybe I'll captain Alvarez. But yeah, the website will probably crash before that transfer goes through. So I agree with Andy about avoiding that.
True.
So we are going to have to get out of here soon. Obviously, we're taking up over 2 hours of Andy's time, which is very kind of him. We will go to the Discord questions just quickly from Catherine. We have one in the YouTube questions channel. She says, who are the best forward options now? Currently on Watkins, Haaland, and Pedro. Is Kane now an option if he stays? Any thoughts on that three specifically? Watkins, Haaland, and Pedro, Andy? Or is there someone else that sneaks into your thinking, like a Jackson or a Wissa or anyone else?
No, that's a good 3. I mean, if I was going to go 3 up top, it'd be those 3 at the moment. I don't like Kane until the transfer window's closed. I don't like if he's not sold this week, could it be sold the week after? It doesn't. If the window's closed, then Kane becomes an option. But for me at the moment, until that window shuts, I'm not going to be buying Kane. I don't think he can go there. Even if, I mean, yes, he'll probably score against Brentford. Yes, he'll probably score against Manchester United. But I don't think he'd be burnt too much in those 2 fixtures anyway.
I think Bayern are going to keep pushing by the look of things, and Levy is really just pushing it for as much as he can get. But do you remember the last time Kane tried to leave and how poor he was for like the first few months after he didn't manage to get the move to City? There's also that narrative of if he's forced to stay, will he be unlocked in this new attacking flow football from Ange, or is he going to be a bit pissed off? Who knows? Let's go to the Q&A from the YouTube chat. These are going to be quick fire. Quick shout out to FPL Bondos, new YouTube member on the show while we were live. So Leon says, will Havertz or Martinelli have better minutes? I'm going to go for Martinelli. That's the quick fire right there. 2-4 million keepers. I'm not going to go. I'm not even going to entertain that. What else do we have? We have FPL Glasto. First time here. I love the philosophy section. Leon asked, do you think Nketiah starts over Trossard? I think most Arsenal fans would rather Trossard starts. I just have some weird feeling that Nketiah maybe gets that first game, but not really beyond that. Saka surely on penalties from Fingerman Bob until he misses one. I think he will eventually lose the penalties. I'm not sure he's lost them yet. So one for you, Andy. Generals on. Is two attackers too much from Arsenal?
From Arsenal, no, I don't believe so. I think the fixtures are too nice.
Yeah,
I have toyed the idea of not having Martinelli and I've looked at Foden. I've looked at another 6.5 mid instead of Martinelli. But then I've come to the realisation that Forest at home is just an explosive fixture. He's a captain option in Gameweek 1. So if I think he's a captain option, then he surely needs to be in my team.
He's my vice captain in fan team at the moment, actually. But so from Andrew Dale, when the Chelsea matchup happens, can it be discussed what happens with Nkunku out for a few months and the potential of Mudryk? So I think we covered this during the show. So we're going to timestamp this all so you can come back to it. And yeah, the data for the captaincy metric and for the matchups is post World Cup, as Gabe says.
No, the captaincy is last 6.
Oh, last 6. Okay, captaincy is only last 6, so it includes Saka's missed penalty.
Yeah, but what it does to let you know is it weights the most recent fixtures. So if they've hauled recently, it weights those, and then so it weights the first 2, closest 2, then the next 2 is a slightly lower weighting, and then the last 2 is even slightly. And basically, what happens is, gradually speaking, that their form rolls off. So if they've hauled a couple of times in the last 3 or 4 fixtures, then they're really going to jump. So you're looking for a form. That's the form type of weighting.
It's not weighted because they had a double game week and
no, they're that's per. So what it does is it takes those as individuals, mate.
Okay, fine.
So yeah, so I'll do for example 37-1 and 37-2.
Right. Okay,
so
fine.
It'll be their last 6 fixtures.
Cool. All right. So this one from Anchor, Saka for the Gameweek 1 captaincy shout. I think we've discussed that in the captaincy metric. First choice keeper at West Ham. We covered this. Bowen, more interesting for fan team. Is McTominay joining West Ham? Could be. When Wilson plays, he scores. Does fixture difficulty really matter? Any thoughts on this one? Wilson has been very kind of hot starting seasons for a few years now. And actually, one of my more casual friends said this to me about 2-3 years ago. And he was like, I'm definitely going to have Wilson in my Gameweek 1 team. And every year he does it. And every year he starts at the top of the mini league because no one else has Wilson.
I had Wilson last season. He only got 6 points. I had Wilson and Kane up top as my front 2. And it bombed dramatically.
It rains in the desert every now and again, apparently, as well.
Yeah, I do like Wilson. I think he is, again, another great...
I still never forgive Gabe. I never forgive you, Gabe.
Never forgive me.
Never
Bring it up every week.
I still remember that as well, but I don't blame him. I own my decision, Mariner. You still blame me for 2 seasons ago for buying Chelsea after I told you not to buy.
Yeah, I blame you.
See what I mean? I guess it's tough when you're like 30th or 20th in the world and you dropped outside the top 100. Seeing those 2 digits turn to 3 digits must have broken your heart. I'll play my little violin for you.
Burner.
I think does anyone have any intel on Newcastle's preseason? Total gap in my knowledge. It's pretty much a huge gap in my knowledge too, because I just saw the fixtures and I didn't go near. I know Almiron got some returns. I know
Harvey Barnes got
this.
Harvey Barnes
got a
2
brace,
goals.
didn't he? Yeah, he got a brace
yesterday. And Wilson got the 2 assists, I think.
Interesting. Is there a possibility of Kane, Salah, and Rashford striker until Haaland's fit being enough to make you go against Haaland? I think just for what we said about not knowing if Kane will leave before the window closes, I don't think so. Right. Isaac and Wilson necessary for a 1-game week punt? Are people tempted by Kane instead of Salah? So if you keep Haaland, would you be interested in like a 2 premium draft with Kane and Haaland together just for those few weeks that he might not be gone? I've seen a few drafts, right? I've seen a few drafts just recently in the last 2 days after Kane scored his 4 goals with both Kane and Haaland, and they look very good. They are missing an Arsenal attacker, though. And I'm not sure how much I think paying that extra for Kane is worth not having an Arsenal attacker against Forest at home. But
I really like Kane. I've got to be honest. If he stays, the one thing about Kane is that if you went Haaland Kane, you could easily switch. You've got that easier switch towards Salah, haven't you? If Salah goes off, you've got that easier switch.
Yeah. I think we've got to keep going quick fire here because we are literally 2-3 minutes out from turning off the computer.
Yeah.
So Nick Jackson over Watkins for Mitch. Is Kulu from Leon a good pick as Madison? I'm a Celtic fan, and our numbers our wingers put up suggest that someone of Kulu's quality could thrive in Ange's system.
Gabe?
I don't rate Kulusevski, so I'd go with Madison.
You really rate him as much as Harvey Barnes, don't you? Anyway, but there we go.
Any thoughts on Gakpo getting lots of minutes started in midfield? I don't want a forward who plays in midfield personally, and with the McAllister injury, I wonder if we might see more of that. So not for me. One for you, Andy, from Fingermore. How does Andy feel about Tyler Adams? Will he start in the pivot with Enzo, free up Conor Gallagher to go further forwards?
Yeah, I saw that with Chelsea link today. Is that...
I was going to say, because I didn't even know that, like, I was a bit confused. I was like, why are they asking about Leeds? Like,
no, I mean, I think Tyler Adams is great. He showed last season what he can do, and working alongside Enzo, I think that complements him very well. He's someone that just gets around the pitch really well. So Tyler Adams in a Chelsea shirt. That'll be instead of Caicedo, right? If they go Tyler Adams. Yeah,
but it sounds like Caicedo's camp are saying very different things to Brighton's camp, and he feels he'll be at Chelsea soon. So, yeah, I'd keep an eye on that one.
I mean, maybe Chelsea saying, look, okay, well, now we're going for Tyler Adams. What are you saying, Brighton? Are you...
It might just be like a game of chicken here, right?
Yeah.
So Mateus asks, how important is it to have both Bruno Fernandes and Rashford? You say you have both, Andy. I think a lot of people in this right now in this forum have both. I only have Rashford.
I've got both. I like both. You know that Bruno's going to get every minute on pens. Rashford is playing up top. If I was to come off one, it would probably be Rashford, which is crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why that is. I feel Bruno is so creative, so involved, and Rashford can sometimes be on the periphery of things. So, but I don't know where I'd go with Rashford. Like, it would be another 6.5 mid, and then I've got money again. So
it's just like you're constantly struggling to spend money. Yeah, no wonder you've got Trent. So FPL Blue asks, what's the rankings of the top 5 teams for 4+ goals and 3+ goals? Where do City and Haaland fall? I think if we're going to put the timestamp for the Gameweek 1 to 5 rankings, and I would suggest just going there. But also, you've been a member for a while, Blue, but I believe you're one of the few who are not in the Discord. So WhatsApp me about how to join, and there are a lot of these data points in the data channels. Akib asks, if not Onana, which goalkeeper would you pick? So I guess which 4.5 would you go for, Andy?
Jordan Pickford. Those fixtures in the first 8 are great. Really good.
I'm on Pickford at the moment. I just don't know about Steele and what's going to go on there, especially after the first 3 weeks. Flecken, I'm not so convinced by Brentford at the moment defensively. I think Johnston is a shout, but again, I don't really like those fixtures. So FPL Josh, what's your thoughts about Eze, Mudryk, or Diaby? Josh is on Mudryk at the moment.
All week long. I'm just going to be every minute of every day, these 6.5 million mids they're all great, right? They're all really, really good. I don't know how to pick them. I'm leaning towards Matoma because the fixtures.
What about from these 3 though? Gabe's on Mudryk now, I think.
Yep.
I'd be tempted by Diaby. Any love for Eze?
Yes, loads of love for Eze.
I think I would go for the talisman.
Eze.
I think I would go for Eze. Yeah.
So sorry, Josh, we've not really helped you here. We've basically given one answer.
The only thing is I'm quite into this expected involvement now, and seeing how XG spread around a team and involvement spread around a team, and I think that's quite important because if they're not getting that much XG, he needs to be involved in it, a lot of it.
So it's set pieces, pens, minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tops it all.
Yeah.
Kulu slander. Wow. I'll send you some clips from prior episodes.
Get used to that on Net That
Get
Haul.
used to it.
You know what's crazy? Like, you would think I'm not the gooner with the way these two are. I'm probably less biased against Spurs than these two
I'm not
Madrid and
biased
Grimsby
against Spurs.
Town.
I look at the data. I'm biased against anyone.
All right, favorite 4.5 defender, and then from Mateus, and then Ujan asks, can you
Colwell.
rank 4.5 defenders?
Colwell for me.
Anyone different? I'm going to go Pau Torres.
I was going to say Pau Torres, but I want to go Anil Ahmed Zosic.
Let's call him Arnold.
That's not bad. That's brave right there.
We'll call him Voldemort because he shouldn't be named.
I thought you did a runner after the pronunciation.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think we'd agree generally. Colwell and Pau Torres, Botman eventually down the line. It's a bit of slim pickings, but from Ujan, will Rashford start up front? Is he not better in the left? I'm not sure how United are going to line up. I think Rashford himself says he prefers to play off the left.
Rashford's better on the left. He'll start up front until Højlund is ready though.
Cool. Cypher, would you pick Garnacho or Watkins for game week 1? Big price difference. So I don't know what you unlock by downgrading that far, but it's like a 3 million difference in price, Cypher. But like I go Watkins if those are the choices. But if you can, get a cheeky Garnacho with Pedro and bench Chilwell in game week 1, then yeah, why not? Final ones from Fingermore, from each panel member, nice and short. Who is one player in any position going under the radar in your opinion?
Colwell.
Yeah, nice.
See, Andy's deep in thought.
Lauren James's brother.
We've all gone towards Chilwell because of the negative bias to James, but we forget they're both as injury prone as each other. That's a good shout. I do think Garnacho is a great shout if he does lock in that spot long term. But I think for now, I would tend to agree with you guys earlier in the show about Trossard at 7 million, because I don't see how he can't start. Like, he's been the standout performer of the preseason. He was great from when he arrived in January. He can play in so many positions and he's so great. And I honestly think at 7 million, it's between him and Maddison at 7.5 for me. Those are the two but I don't know if Maddison's really going under the radar. That's why I didn't list him first.
I'll say Mudryk at 3%.
Post my axe.
Mudryk 6.5. Okay.
I just need to know where to post my axe to West London in case I go down the Trossard route. Right. Remember,
not in game week 1, man. Not in game week 1. Bernardo Silva at 6.5 million. If he stays, that could be wow. That could be mental.
Add it to the list.
Add him to the list. So many 6.5s. Yeah, we were talking about the Neymar to Chelsea rumor. I don't know what that means for Jackson personally. Steven, so we have talked about Garnacho earlier in the Man United matchup section, so we'll timestamp that as well. But yeah, we think if there's ever a time, it is actually early on is the best time for him, really. Just think if there's any other final questions. Otherwise, when is Højlund back? How does his inclusion affect Rashford and Bruno? I think it will help Bruno a lot because a lot of his chances he created didn't convert last season. So I think it will be good to have him back. Just while we wrap up, do join the Net That Haul mini league. For the podcast listeners, the code is HUP69D. For the YouTube members and the Patreons, if you're supporting the channel, there is also a members only league. We will run some fun competitions throughout the season in Discord, and we will give out some prizes for those for first, second, and third, and the cup winner, and some monthly shout outs analyzing your team on the show. Thank you to our super haulers, David Harrison, somehow FPL Nima. I think Blue accidentally gifted me a membership because it's done at random. Zach, Harbour Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, and FPL Robbie. We have today's new hauler, FPL Bondos. We have our long-time haulers, Dread FPL, FPL Craig, Podner, Mike Halpin, Donny FPL, Oscar Arias, FPL Teacher who's tuned in, Blonde, S. Scott M, Tom Gorish, Devindra Raj, Lindsay, C. Hunt, Akshay, FPL DG Boy, Claire, Dom, Catherine, William, Harry Notkane, Neil, Sebastian Koo, Benjamin Lockwood, Tursks, Neil's Apples, Jasker and Singh, Nick Khan, FPL Robert Ducky, Big Mike, or Mike Halpin as he's otherwise known, Kevin Rose, FPL Safa, General Zod, Salah the Samurai, FPL Blue, Reese Hughes Jones, FPL Planner, Jack M, and our Patreons, Elron, Lucy and Gann, FPL California, Mike Burke, and Matthew Kane. We really appreciate your support. I did try to give the membership today. It ended up with Thingamabob, who's already a Patreon. Now he's also a YouTube member, I think. So on Wednesday's Rate My Team show, the final Roast My Team show of the preseason, I will be back with Gabe and some guests, and we will answer any questions we missed today. And I'll put a tweet out tomorrow at some point to get your drafts in, especially with all the latest injury news and the Community Shield out of the way. Looking forward to rating your drafts on Wednesday night over a drink, and just hope to catch you guys there. But for anyone who's been living under a rock, Andy, where can they find you? Where can they be part of this elusive circle of creative thinkers who actually play FPL their own way, despite what people might try to say about you not having a process? You actually probably have a more thorough process than most people in the community. Where can they find you?
They can find me at Bournemouth Pier or on Twitter or at the X. It's FPL_tactician.
And if you do go to Bournemouth Pier and you do bump into Andy, as we said at the start of the show, there's always goodies that you will leave with. So yeah.
I'll get some Axe key rings. I'll get some Axe key rings. How's about that? I'll try and get that in.
I think I'll come and collect one just for Gabe, especially. So Josh,
I found this just for you, Nima.
You're an idiot. Don't make me get out my trophy that I didn't break the day it arrived, like you when you threw it and it bounced off the bed and smashed because you were upset. My trophy
now as well. This one's got bent as well.
Look at that, showing off again.
You don't look after your trophies.
Humble brag there. Oh, all my trophies are bent. I have so many and they're all bent.
I had to give my trophy back.
I noticed Nima never showed his little pair of bollocks, which he won the other year.
Oh, I've given them away now. So someone else came last in the draft league, and the Bulls trophy with the hairy, wiry Bulls is now no longer mine. Thank God. Hopefully, I don't have the return.
Damn wallet won't hold all my money. Oh my God, all these problems.
Look at all these trophies for first place and last place. I have no in between. I only come first or last. I don't know how to do anything else, but honestly, you guys have been amazing. Josh, I will put a tweet out tomorrow from the Net That Haul account, and you'll be able to submit your drafts there. But honestly, it's been such a pleasure. We've been waiting to speak with Andy for a long time. For the podcast listeners, the thumbnail is actually Andy having his porridge and lovingly being looked at by Mohamed Salah. We will see you all on Wednesday. I will announce the special guest for the Roast My Team on Twitter tomorrow, and we will see everyone next time. But cheerio and good luck in game week 1. Peace.